Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the WodCAST podcast. I am your host, Eddie Ift, and each and every week I bring you a show about strength, conditioning, health, nutrition, all kinds of good, juicy stuff like that. This week, do we have a show for you. I have probably my new favorite nutritionist that I've ever spoken to. I've spoken to a lot of nutritionists. I love this woman. She was so informative, so educated, so understanding. I can't talk, can't keep raving about her. Just got to get to the show. Jaclyn Sklaver is here for you guys today. She's a badass nutritionist, works with a lot of NFL players. And I had a million questions for her. I think I pelted. I think I scared her. I asked her so many questions. But before we get to that, let's talk about this show. What's going on? Hey, everybody. We've got some sponsors today. Eat the 80, which we love. Speaking of nutrition, the most flavorful food in the world. And home delivery, it's perfect. We also have you guys to thank. I want to thank you guys for everything you do. You guys give to the Patreon, which pays for some of the staff. You know, people don't know it, but this thing doesn't run itself. There's a sweatshop of people behind me that really make this thing happen, and people don't realize it. They're like, how does the WodCAST run so efficiently? That you hear dogs barking, things get shut down, the episodes don't go out on time. How does it run so efficiently? Well, I'll tell you how. The boss is right here. That's me. I'm responsible. Shit rolls uphill. Anyway, no, we've got a lot of really good people. My man Machete, Ernie Hurtado, has been with me forever. Make sure the audio is great every week. We've got Michael Fratelli, who handles all of the video clips that you see on Instagram, YouTube. Does a really good job of that, of editing the video. So, I keep joking about how no one's watching on YouTube. Go in, subscribe. I want to see subscribers. Let's turn this thing in. As soon as COVID's over, I'm going to shoot this like a real show. We're going to go out, we're going to do clips. We're going to do, not clips, we're going to do segments. We're going to do sketches. I'm going to make this show just the greatest show in the entire fitness world. I also want to talk, Jeremy Lesniak, I want to thank, who does a lot with our YouTube. And he is a great dude. He's been a guest of the show, friend of the show, friend of mine. So those guys are who really makes it happen. And also, there's a woman named Lauren, does a pretty good job handling the advertising, but she doesn't need thanked. Let's get on to the show. Or Patreon, if you guys want to give to the Patreon, it's patreon.com/WodCAST. Or it's WodCastPodcast.com/Patreon. And you go to that, you give $5. What are you going to win? Do you want to know what you win? You want a Myopux or a Leopard Claw? There's a lot of news about these electronic muscle stimulators. People are loving them. One of the companies just sold for $34 million because everybody knows this is what you need for rehab. You should have your own little pocket electronic muscle stimulator, and you can have one if you give just $5 a month to the WodCAST podcast. That gives you 5 episodes, not 4, 5. Have I been delayed on the 5th episode? Maybe. I'm in Pittsburgh seeing my mom, who is not well. So it's held me back a little bit, but I will get that 5th episode as soon as I get back. But you get 5 episodes a month, and you get, what else do you get? You get into a drawing where you can get a Myopux and a Leopard Claw. Leopard Claw is a device that you use, a multi-tool device that you can use to scrape adhesions in your fascia. If you don't know what that is, Google it. I could explain it to you. It would take a while. Let's just say it's going to rehab you a lot quicker, get blood flow to your injured area. All physical therapists use them. Any good one worth his salt or her salt. The electronic muscle stimulator, amazing. This stuff's worth $450. I'm going to give it to you for a donation of $5. How about that? Well, you're in a drawing. Okay. And your winner this week, your winner this week, Jared Dahlman. Jared, congratulations. You just won yourself a leopard claw and a Myopucks. Send us an email, and we'll hit up Troy over there at Myopucks and Leopard Claw and make sure you get that on its way to you. If anyone else has not received theirs, please contact me. I stay on top of them to make sure everybody's getting them. And I thank you guys. I thank you guys for supporting the show. What else is going on? Had to cancel my week in Vegas because of what's going on back here in Pittsburgh. I've got some tour dates coming up. I'm setting up a tour September, October, November, December. I will be touring every single week in a different city. Already I have Minneapolis, if it still exists. I've got on the books a bunch of Canada shows. Edmonton. I've got Vancouver. I've got San Diego set up. I've got Kansas City set up. Whole bunch of things happening. So get your tickets. Go to eddief.com. This whole tour will be posted. I'll be doing my new hour because I finished Sweet Home Alabama. That is my new album that's out, available on iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube. Go use it on YouTube, please. I need the hits on YouTube, and you can get it for free. Watch my entire hour-long special, Sweet Home Alabama, and leave a nice comment. Don't be a troll. And what else? Those are available. You can go to the bio in my Instagram at EddieIft and find a link to all of them. I think that's it. I think we're ready to hit the show right now. That was pretty quick. 7 minutes. 7 minutes. It usually takes longer, but I did it in 7 minutes. I don't want to talk about any CrossFit news about the quarterfinals or anything like that. Let's just all focus on being better as human beings right now. And let's enjoy this episode with Jaclyn Sklaver. And if you like it, go to Instagram, iTunes, rate, review, comment. That's one of the things you can do. If you don't, go to the Patreon. It's a really nice way to contribute to the show. Rate, review, and comment, and enjoy this episode. You were saying that you don't have your Zoom background.
I don't. I just moved. And I'm waiting, with COVID, furniture is all backed up. So waiting for office furniture. So I'm working for my kitchen, and I don't have any of my fun, all my stuff, my tickets, my collectibles, my autograph things, stuff to show that I'm a real professional.
I so wish I was in one of the businesses that has done so well during COVID. Like there's certain businesses like bikes, bicycle sales have gone like through the roof, lumber, any home like furnishings, because people have done like renovations to their homes. I guess podcasting has done, I don't know if it's done better or worse, but comedy, what I do, has been shut down completely. Stand up. For a year at least. But yeah, so I just wish like you have my furniture. It's so hard to get furniture. It's
so hard to get furniture right now.
So many businesses are doing so well.
Yeah.
How is the nutrition business going?
It hasn't been bad. Given everything that happened with COVID, I can't complain. I was based in New York City, and I work with pro athletes, so I took a double hit. But it did pick itself back up. I can't really complain. I had to reposition really, really fast. I would think that more people would be more concerned with their nutrition, given that we got to see the state of the health of this country. However, that's a commitment, and that's admitting that you're doing stuff wrong. And people think they have this fear of nutrition, like they have to eat steamed broccoli every day, which is not the case. So yes, nutrition is one of those things where you really have to be ready for it, right?
Well, I just heard Savon, who was the head of CrossFit Media. He's a friend of mine, and he does his own podcast and he does a lot of content online. And he's a big believer that COVID has affected the health of the United States and like shutting down gyms and shutting down. They should be essential. It's like, let's get people healthy because healthy people don't get COVID badly, generally speaking. But I was thinking like, and they're talking about how the health has suffered, mental health and physical health of people has suffered. I'm like, has it? Because generally speaking, I think people are a lot less stressed. They're not driving into work. They're not commuting. They're not dealing with like a lot of bullshit at work. There's so many things, like more family time, more walks, more like I see my neighborhood, everybody's walking. Especially during like lockdown, everybody was out walking around the neighborhood, going on walks. And a lot of my friends are now exercising more than I've ever heard. So maybe they're not doing it in a gym. So it is affecting gyms, but I tend to believe that it's probably a wash, like for as many people that got unhealthy, start drinking more, anxiety, stress, there's all these people that have like, bicycle sales are through the roof, Peloton's crushing it. And, people are getting outside and getting fresh air. So I'd love to see some real statistics on that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think that people did come around, and like you said, the stress, I saw a huge change, especially because, I work in nutrition, functional medicine nutrition. So stress, cortisol levels, hormones, those are a huge factor. And working with New Yorkers, I definitely saw changes. But then I also, I saw some positive, but I also saw some negative, because you hear about like this COVID-15, and it's not even from people not being as active, but think about the underlying stress that we had, whether we want to admit it or not. Like subconsciously, we had huge changes to our life, and that was stressful for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
So, we saw some people, but I think now we're on the side of the people have lost it. So if they gained it, now they've lost it, they've taken that action to lose it. And whether that meant they hired a nutritionist or they got a little bit harder on their training and realized like, I need to be proactive now.
What do you do with pro athletes exactly?
So I'm a sports nutritionist and I work with them. They hire me on their own. I don't work with a team. I have a focus on NFL players. I also have some fighters and tennis players as well. So I started working with them for NFL Combine. That's how I got into it, training them for NFL Combine. And then it started with NFL off season. And now I work with athletes also throughout the 12-month calendar.
So do you know Ryan Flaherty?
No, I don't.
Ryan coaches them and the combine for their sprinting, jumping.
Where is he located?
He's got a camp out in San Clemente.
California. So California is a little bit, it's such a different market because I'm on the East Coast. I do know a couple of people out there, like Speed and things of that nature, but West Coast is just so different, Yeah. So I kind of got the East Coast on lockdown, and I was initially planning on having some people out in the West Coast this year, but that kind of got pushed off. So we'll wait next year.
I don't think he does it anymore because he's now the head of Nike Performance Training.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
But he's been doing it for years and years, and he has a camp that they come to get better athletically. I don't know if he does anything nutrition wise at all, but
yeah, I mean, if it's just this with the speed, like the speed coaches, I mean, it's an 8-week program where we have to take the most elite athletes in the country and make them perform better than they've ever performed. And a lot of that also means losing 20 pounds, gaining 20 pounds. The changes that we see are mind blowing. I mean, when people have these like, oh, you can't gain more than 1 pound of muscle. And I'm like, bro, let me tell you the things I've seen. Let me tell you things I've seen naturally happen in 8 weeks. And I know for a fact, because we've done DEXs, we've done we've done BodPods. I've done studies. I did while I was in grad school, I did 2, papers, poster presentations on it. So I know for a fact that it's possible to put on 8, 10, 12 pounds of muscle.
Let me ask you, let me stop you right there. So I know a DEXA scan, but what's a BodPod?
So a BodPod is an immersion. So it actually I would say like you're going underwater type thing. Oh. It's not the hydrostatic, but BodPod is considered the gold standard.
Really?
Similar to DEXA. Yeah. I like DEXA because I work with women as well. And that helps with bone mineral density. We get to see if osteoporosis is forming. And so I like DEXA because for me, you get to kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. But when you have large athletes, and most of my athletes are large, it's rare that a speed guy, a skills guy is hiring me because they don't have the same problems with their weight, I guess, but the larger guys, then they're going to have to quad it off. So like they can't fit their whole body into that scan. So then, it just becomes a little more of a hassle.
Yeah, I tell every trainer that listens to this show that they need to get their client a DEXA scan and get their client blood work. And I don't
Mhm.
understand why that's not like you walk into a trainer and that's not mandatory. Because I mean, they're your metrics right there.
Well, I mean, a trainer just they don't have the authority to do it. Like as a nutritionist, as a licensed nutritionist, I order lab work all the time. And if somebody comes to me and they have, a PCP, I tell them what's covered under insurance, what they can get done through their doctor, and I need to see that. It has to be within the past 6 months, the longest. If not, I can order it. I can order more in-depth functional lab work. I could also work without it, but it helps a lot to see what's going on inside of your body. Especially, it depends on where you're coming to me for. Are you coming to me because you have some problems? Are you coming to me because you want to be even more of an elite athlete? Are you coming to me just because of weight loss or weight gain? Because that's not as important. But if I have to really tweak and get into see what's going on with like your Krebs cycle and your neurotransmitter pathways, and are you, your antioxidant levels, your mitochondria production, little things that make the elite even better, then
Yeah.
I'd like to see what's going on inside your body.
Yeah. So what do you do when you need someone and they do want to gain that 8 pounds of muscle? What kind of diet are you trying to put them on?
They need to eat a lot, like it's a second job, and it all depends. So if we only have 8 weeks, this is the thing I tell people, like combine, some of my rules go out the door. Like if they want to have milkshakes every night, they're going to have milkshakes every night. They have to get there. If it's it's an 8-week diet, if it's a long-term diet, we're going to take the healthiest route, but let's be real, calories from fat are much easier to consume. You get more than double the amount that you do for like carbs. You're not going to want to eat 1,000 calories in rice and beans. You want to eat 1,000 calories like peanut butter and yogurt and ice cream, peanut butter and ice cream and protein powder in there. So, so for the combine, it's a little bit different. And my one rule is like no fried food. We're trying to keep your inflammation down. But for regular people or for an athlete that has a longer time period to put the weight on, we are going to do a high calorie, anti-inflammatory, nutrient dense diet that is easy for them to get in, so that even though eating does become a job, they don't feel like just constantly stuffed. I think that's the trick. Really palatable foods, things that they want to eat, where, for instance, say we're going to do sweet potatoes. Well, then maybe we'll put some honey in there. Maybe we'll put some butter and honey. And now you've had, instead of having, a huge thing of sweet potatoes, now you have a smaller thing in the same amount. Fruits like dried fruit, like dates. They're so great because they have so many, so much 40 carbs and like 2 or 3 of them. Right. So we make like homemade, like energy balls. And if we can't get them homemade, there's plenty of places to buy things nowadays. So using foods that are just nutrient dense and high in calories.
I know. I just noticed my sister my mom is elderly and trying to get her to gain weight. And I came home here to my parents' place in Pittsburgh and I noticed they had this I didn't bring my protein powder, and I see this container of protein powder and I'm like, oh, great. And then I look, it's like a weight gaining protein powder. And I look and it's got like 50 grams of protein in a serving. And I'm like, can I even absorb anywhere near that amount? And then I look at the calories, or the carb content was super high too, because I guess maltodextrose or something like that, some kind of sugar that they're using to get. But I was just like, yeah, I think I'll pass on this one.
I mean, we have, they always have the weight gainer stuff for the guys, and I prefer not to use that. It's hard to digest. It's powdered food. So if we can get whole foods, and then that gives me an opportunity to get the nutrients in of those foods. So we'll do like coconut cream, and we'll put orange juice in, and we'll put, we do all these things. I have a whole recipe book of like 1,200 calorie shakes. And then there's some local places like Smoothie King. They have something that's a very high calorie shake. So we get it done. If they have to use the weight gainer, they never like it. Weight gainer stuff doesn't taste good. It's like powdery and gross. So like, why not? Let's just load it up on yummy foods in this blender and get them to do it that way. So yeah, they're not that palatable. That's how I feel.
Yeah. I'm a big protein powder guy just because I'm on the go so much, and I've got 2 little children that I'm always constantly doing protein shakes or just protein with coconut water. And, like a couple times a day, just trying to keep my protein content up. Cause everything I look at and every blood test I've ever had and everything, when they're like, you need more protein. And I'm like, I eat so much protein. I'm like, I eat.
So then it makes me wonder, I just think about your metabolism, what's going on. There's something on your pathway that maybe you're B6 deficient. B6 helps with our amino acid absorption. And so if you're eating a ton of protein and you're, for some reason, I don't know what type of testing you're doing, but it's showing that you have low protein, or maybe your protein metabolites are really high, your body's not utilizing it correctly. So why? And that's where the functional medicine part of me comes in. It's always like, what's the root cause? And so I instantly will think B6. There could be something else, but that's definitely a huge cofactor in protein metabolism. So, like, why, if you're eating all this protein, are you coming back low all the time?
Sure. I'm a big fan of functional medicine, and I've talked with some functional medicine doctors on here. And I think that's kind of the wave of the future, especially, we're here dealing with my mom in the hospital, and I'm watching how the doctors work and how quickly they go straight to medicine for this, medicine for that. And then that's going to cause that. And then we'll get this medicine for that. And we've got this.
It's just masks, right? It's like you have like, I think of an apartment in New York where they my apartment was like 50 years old. It probably had like 17 layers of paint, and they just paint another layer on, and the new girls moves in. And so that's what happens with, and listen, I have some friends that are doctors. They're amazing. They're smart. They're genius. We couldn't live without modern medicine, but masking things instead of using food to help the root cause, which a lot of things can be prevented or helped through food, is not the answer. It's not the long-term answer. It's the big pharma answer. And that's the problem.
Look, and what my friend made a good point. He said they go to medical school to learn to study medicine. They're learning medicine. And emergency medicine is amazing. They're incredible in handling emergencies and stuff like that. But again, all these root causes and all these lack of things that are natural to this world that they could take on, if somebody had a little more sun, or they had a little more, ate a little better, or moved a little better, or moved a little more often, their life could change. And, but everybody waits, and they wait for that pill, and they wait for that, that simple, that's just, I guess culturally, that's the way we've been raised. And it's going to be really, really hard to reverse that.
And that's covered by insurance. So if you have an insurance policy and you want to do something that's affordable, it's almost cheaper to get medicine than it is to get food. Or, naturopathic doctors, functional medicine practitioners, myself, we don't take insurance. And so that costs more. And that's a barrier. It's a problem,
Well, I was just going to say, they've started now with physical therapists, because I broke my elbow at one point and they wanted to do surgery. One of the doctors was like, surgery, and the other doctor said, no, let's do some physical therapy. And the surgery would have been covered under insurance, but the physical therapy was too. And I opted for the physical therapy, and I did that constantly and did a lot of stuff.
But did you still have a huge copay? Because I know like mine's $75 a session, which adds up. You have to go 3 times a week. That's a lot.
It wasn't that bad, I remember. And then something like I switched insurance and it got bad. It all depends. But at the end of the day, it was a good thing I didn't choose surgery, because I fixed my elbow.
Right, exactly.
Did not need that surgery. And so glad I didn't have surgery. So glad. But if they would put more value in that, in exercise, in, nutrition, in these different things, and allow it to be like, to have nutritionists covered by.
They can be. So RDs, a lot of RDs are covered. I could apply to take insurance, but it just wouldn't cover. They don't see our value in cost. And then I'd have to hire somebody to do the medical billing. And I'm not at that level.
Sure.
A lot of my clients can get reimbursed. So for instance, especially like Google, people that work for like Facebook, Instagram, they have an amazing coverage. They get like full reimbursement for me. And a lot of other companies, they'll do like an 80% reimbursement after your deductible or things like that. So there are a lot of people who can get reimbursed for my services, which is great. So they're not saying no. It's just, as a practitioner, it's very hard to get accepted. And then they pay out very, very low. And then you have to have this whole back end of billing, which I just can't do that right now.
I've seen people dealing with it, and I'm like, this is awful. This is awful, but it's so necessary. I've had friends and family members with health problems where I'm like, you need to get a nutritionist now, like right now. And then they start getting into, no one's available. This person's not available. Then they won't pay for it. They don't take insurance, blah, blah, blah. And it's a very, very difficult thing. But I constantly talk to people and refer them to people. And I go, call my friend Dylan. He's a nutritionist. Call this person, call this person. They are really good at handling it. And sometimes people shrug it off. And I'm like, how are you? Like, this is the most important thing in your life right now.
People are so afraid. I'm telling you, there's this fear behind nutrition being like a change. Like, you're not going to be able to enjoy life. Like, you're going to have this restrictive lifestyle, this restrictive diet. And that's not the case. A nutrition, and I don't even like to call it diet, it's a nutrition plan, you get to eat the foods that you love. You get to have a social life. If you have a practitioner who's doing it correctly, you can't be having like 7 martinis a night and 8 glasses of wine, but we'll work things in, we'll make things happen, and you will definitely feel better. And you won't even want to go back to that lifestyle. I promise, every single person I've worked with is like, wow, I don't even know how I ate that crappy.
Yeah.
If I go to a Wendy's right now, I will get sick. Or if I have that much out, I don't even want to drink that much when I'm out. I don't want to order French fries. Just all these different changes, you start to feel better and you love it, and so nobody's saying you have to have grilled chicken and steamed broccoli every day. And I think that's what people are afraid of. They're going to take away my joy and happiness. Now, there's also a huge behavioral component to eating as well, right? And we know that. I personally don't work with behavioral eating, but I do have somebody in my practice who does. And whether it's general population or athletes, they all, a lot of people have issues around food and why it's a comfort for them, or what's been embedded in their head for years. So I really love to have the woman that I work with, because she gets to bring something else to the table as well. And
you just said the greatest thing in the world. I have gotten in fights on this show. I have fought with so many people. The biggest fight that ever happened on this show was me with someone who's a friend of mine now, but about The Biggest Loser. And I said, these people on this show do not need trainers. They need therapists. They have eating disorders. They have eating problems, emotional eating, and they need someone to work on their behavior, and they need CBT or some kind of therapy. It's like, get them to a psychiatrist, then you can take them to a trainer.
And I don't know if you know about this, if you've had other nutritionists on, they may talk about the fact that The Biggest Loser is one of the biggest nutritional studies that we've been looking at, retrospectively, finding different things out about leptin resistance, about weight regain, about metabolism, about how, what they did to them. I mean, people's metabolism from The Biggest Loser, I don't know how many years ago it was, their metabolism never returned back to what it was before. It is literally changed their metabolism. And they did it whether they, were eating on their own or they were eating, in a controlled environment. It still never went back to the same. And then, of course, they never fixed the root problem here. And
so what are you saying? Their metabolism
reduced. They reduced because they put them through so much stress. The amount of exercise they did, and they also had them on some type of pills too. And that came out in the end too. But the amount of exercise, the small amount of food, what your body does is it adapts, right? So your metabolism will slow down to be able to provide your survival mode, right? Like your organs and what you need to actually to sleep, to function, and you're minimal. And so not just you start to burn less calories with your resting metabolic rate, but the amount of calories you burn when you exercise slows down. And that's just human adaptation. And we see that through studies, that when they go back into history. And that's what they did to these people. They put them in such chronic situations. Now we also know that if we look at these like starvation studies, it changes your brain chemistry too, right? And so we're talking about people who already had issues around food. And that's why people who are so calorie restricted start to binge, because, and you see it in a small sense of people that are very restricted during the week. And on the weekends, they just go nuts. We think that we're smarter than our brain and our body, but we're not. We cannot outsmart our body.
Right.
We cannot, no matter how much we try, no matter how temporary it may seem. At the end of the day, our body's going to be smart. We are survivors. Look how many years it took to get us to where we're at, right? You think that we're just going to say, oh, I'm going to do some like ketogenic diet, or I'm going to intermittent fast and I'm going to lose weight and be able to stay there. No, it's not going to work that way.
Yeah. My wife works with a nutritionist, and he's awesome. And all the things you're saying, he would agree with. And I see her, it's almost like she didn't want to do it, and she didn't want to get it. And I kind of talked her into it because she had 2 children. It was hard to bounce back. And I said, just give it a try, blah, blah, blah. And she did. And, she eats all the time, and she just eats really good foods all the time, and very well-rounded, and knowing, like quality food.
It's a lifestyle. It's not a diet. It's a lifestyle.
It is a
right?
lifestyle.
And that's what I hope most people come. Listen, I always tell people, especially when I'm doing like advertising and marketing, I tell people I might work with the top athletes in the world. I might work, and I don't just work with athletes. I work with a lot of general population that are active. The number one reason people come to me, I don't care if you are the top NFL player in the country, you're coming to me because you care about your body. Bottom line, that's where it starts. Of course, they want career longevity and they want to eat, but they all care about how they look. Everybody cares about how they look. And so that's the first thing. So people do come to me because they quote unquote want to diet, but it's teaching them a lifestyle for longevity, long-term, how to eat. So I don't like to ever really say people are on a diet.
You were working in New York. You were working out of a CrossFit gym, you said at one point?
I was yes, CrossFit Spot. I was the in-house nutritionist at CrossFit Spot. And for a few years, for quite a few years.
Where was it? I don't know CrossFit Spot. Where is that?
So like Carrie Pierce was out of there.
Oh yeah.
She moved out of on the Upper West Side.
Okay.
Near Lincoln Center. And now they actually have 2 locations. They moved up a little bit more on the Upper West Side, but awesome facility. And I was spoiled. Now I realize that I've traveled a lot, and I mean, we had all Leco equipment, or still have all Leco equipment, like just gorgeous facility. Really nice. New York, Manhattan people, although we pay the price, are spoiled with CrossFit gyms because we have air conditioning. We have towels. We have like the luxuries.
Yeah, but also you have things like you can't run in the street without running into people, or you've got to drop the bars. They have pads.
Oh, see, that's the thing. We could drop. We didn't have to do that stuff. You could drop your barbells. We had a whole street that was like blocked off. I mean, they had the great setup there. I was spoiled. And then, even to this day, Florida, it's been so hard to find. I just finally found a decent place where I feel comfortable lifting in because they have good equipment and it's
where are you? What part of Florida are you in?
I'm in Miami, so I just started at Hybrid this week, and so I'm so happy because I was I worked at football facilities for the past 3 years, so I have my own barbell, and most football facilities have a whole weightlifting platform area. So I've been really lucky. I've been able to work where I work, work out where I work. But now with COVID, I wasn't going into a facility, right? So I was working out at a place called Barwis. And it's an amazing strength and conditioning facility, but was with pounds. So I'm back to kilos for the first time in a year. And oh my God, I missed my kilos so much. I don't know why. And I feel so much better, so much stronger. It's just like I'm in my groove. You're in your groove when
That's hilarious because I live in Australia part of the year, and I have to go to kilos when I'm in Australia. And they're like, all right, load up the bar. We want 60 kilo, or something, 75. And I'm like, and they're like, oh, Eddie.
Because you're a CrossFitter, you don't do kilos, right. And that's another thing. It's like hard to find gyms down here that are CrossFit gyms that have a weightlifting area, even, or that have, like New York, we have open gym. Gyms are open all day; they don't close. We're down here, they're like, oh yeah, from 9 to 10 on Thursday you can lift, and I'm like, I need to lift every day, not from 9 to 10 on Thursday.
Yeah.
So it's nice to finally have a home again.
Hey guys, I want to talk to you about Eat the 80. Eat the 80. Eat the 80. They're not gonna hire me to sing their theme song. Eat the 80. Eat the 80. I can't sing or write a song. Eat the 80 has an awesome affiliate program where you can quickly earn free meals for your... Okay, I'm gonna stop that. No, Eat the 80 is... I've talked about it before. It's probably the most delicious meal plan where they deliver to you. You throw it in the microwave. 2.5 minutes later, you're eating a delicious and healthy meal. When I say delicious, I'm not exaggerating. In fact, people think I am because I talk about how delicious it is, but it is the best food. I like it better than my wife's food, and she knows that. She's not mad at me for that. It's just so good. And it's so healthy, and they've got every option you need from, the Whole30 to keto to paleo to, just go to their website, eatthea80.com, and you can check it. But here's even better. If you're a trainer, gym owner, working in the fitness business, and you have people underneath you that you train, coach, whatever you call it, they have an affiliate program where you can quickly earn free meals for yourself. Okay, or for your members, trainers. You get $1.40 in meal credit every time someone orders one. Okay, how great is that? You get $1.40. That they have to use your promo code. Okay, so basically, once 10 people order a box of meals, you get a free box for yourself. Rewards are unlimited. Get enough people signed up, and you can earn cash. We all know getting healthy takes more than just working out hard. It takes eating well. So Eat the 80. We've talked about. They offer fresh, delicious, portion-controlled meals that are gluten-free, contain a healthy balance of carbs, protein, fat. Most meals are recommended as part of a healthy diet by a registered dietitian, Whole30 coach, and soon they will be. Plus, most meals are Whole30 approved. Help your gym members or trainees achieve their best and earn great rewards to contact them. Here's what you got to do. Go to info@eatthea80.com. That's info@eatthea80.com to get your own personal affiliate code. You get a box of business cards with your promo codes on them for sharing. So do this, guys. And if you just want to order Eat the Yeti, go to eattheyeti.com and get the chicken dumplings. That's my number one favorite. Or I think it's called the Farmhouse Scramble. It's so good too. Or the Farmer's Scramble. It's just, no, I like the stew. That stew would be my second favorite. I don't know. They're all so good. Go to eattheyeti.com or info@eattheyeti.com to sign up for their affiliate. I do pretty much my own. Well, I go on my buddy Hunter's program and use it, but it's one of those things where I walk into a gym and they're doing a class. I'm like, can I do my own thing?
Yeah, can I just go in the corner?
Really hard to ask when you're dropping in all the time. I haven't dropped in a year. I don't think I've been in a gym. Yeah, I haven't been in like a year and a half.
Well, that COVID made it even harder because like, what are you going to ask a place that's just open to their members? Like, hey, I'm in town for a day. Can I drop in during COVID? No, you can't even ask that. I just couldn't. I actually got used to, because I was traveling through COVID to see my athletes and to go. I was lucky enough to be able to go to certain football games and we went to the Super Bowl. So I did travel, but I just kind of like sucked it up as like, I'm not going to be able to lift. I could use like the gym and the wherever. We all adapted, right? We all learned to do what we had to do. So
can you, I have a gym at home, so it's made it very easy, but can you name some of your athletes or is that confidential?
I mean, I don't love to like put it out there just because I feel like, it's part of healthcare too, but I work with, household names. People would know who I work with. It's weird because, and the other weird part is people are like, you don't put it on your Instagram. You should brag about it and this and that. And it's like, okay, well, I'm not a strength and conditioning coach. I am working with people's health. If they want to put it out there and say, hey, I'm working with Jackie, like I will piggyback that all day. But it's just awkward for me to be like, to boast about,
right. I agree with you. And I one of my friends is a celebrity trainer and has tons and tons of big name celebrities. I don't think I've ever seen him ever mention one of them, but they've mentioned him. And I'm like, okay, well, he's getting enough exposure through them and probably one of their posts compared to 1,000 of his makes a huge difference.
It does make a huge difference. And the problem, me being a woman, and I was talking about this with the coach the other day, a lot of coaches and they have it in their contract where, they could do X amount of posts and they have to talk about me, blah, blah, blah. Because I'm a woman, it's a lot harder. It sounds crazy, but it is. Like guys will quickly post a guy, but posting a woman becomes, especially for some reason within the culture I work in, it's an issue. I can't help it. I'm a woman. What do you want me to do? But they're not as quick to post me.
I understand it. And are you saying that it's hard to post because of the whole male female thing, or it's because it's a male dominated sport?
No, not at all. I mean, they have such respect for me. Like nobody looks at me as like, it's Jackie's what, and that's part of it. I've trained with the guys and lifted with the guys for years. That's part of like how we got this money. Like that's why they're like, what? She's one of us. She trains like us. She works out like us. And so they call me up to train with them still. So it's not that. It's more of, and I've heard this from a couple athletes, when they post me, they'll get messages like, are you dating her?
Yes.
Are you, I hate to say that, but it happens. And it's like, some guys don't care, some, that's how I know, because some people have told me, they're like, every time I post you, I get so many messages from people. And some people do care and it's awkward for them. And they don't want to deal with it. So they don't post me. And it's like, man, that sucks because one post.
Well, I don't want to go off on a tangent on it, but one of the bad byproducts of the Me Too movement was in some ways it hurt women. Like, I won't take a female opener on the road with me now just because of fear of like, not that anything would ever happen because I know who I am, but the chance of an accusation or the chance of like there could, if with a guy, there can't ever be this situation where the guy goes, oh yeah, he hit on me or he pressured me or he said this. And I want to give an example because it sounds bad. A friend of mine one night had a female opener with him. And after the show, he goes, hey, let's go out. And, we're all the comics, we're all going out and we're going to get a drink. And she went, no, I think I'm going to go back to my room. And he goes, if that was a dude, I'd be like, come on, you pussy, let's go. Let's go, let's get a drink. He goes, but because it's a girl, if I said, come on, you got to have a drink with her, that's putting pressure on her that she could have said, I felt pressured to go out with him drinking, and he's like, I don't want to take that risk of her then going out there to the public and saying,
oh yeah, and
pressure.
That sucks for me because like I'm the kind of person like I want to hang out because I feel like the social aspect, helps me bond more with my athletes. Absolutely. And like, and I'm friends with some of them, and like that could be why like I don't get invited to things like I used to, or I'm working with one athlete where there's an event coming up, and like if I was a guy, I would be without a doubt on the private jet to the event with them, sitting with them, and I'm not. Like a lot of times I am not where I should be because I'm just not there. I'm not one of the guys. Or they'd be like, "Oh, you got to work with my boy." If I was a guy, you got to work like he's the best. He's the best. If I was a guy, that's what they'd be saying. They'd be posting me. They'd be bringing me out there, telling you, "Come to dinner with. I want you to meet my teammates. I want them to see." But I'm a woman. They're not going to be like, "Yo, come to dinner with us." They're not. And
it's a really, really it's fragile. It's like thin ice. It's very scary. And like, I have a wife and I've never been called out for being a scumbag or anything like that. But it's just, you just don't want to be put in that position. So you go, I'd just rather avoid it and I'll bring Joe with me.
I mean, and like, but I'm so one of the guys, like I am such one of the guys. I've always been in my whole life. I've had all guy friends. And once again, some of my friends, a lot of my friends are in the NFL, they said to me, Jack, one of my friends played for the Jets, and he's like, I get it. I've been in New York for a couple of years, but I'm from the South, and I get it. Like everyone in New York is friends. Guys are friends. Girls are friends. Different cultures are friends. Nobody thinks twice about it. Like you're one of the boys. I get it. Mm-hmm. But when you're down South, you're asking people to look at you in a way that they can't even mentally comprehend because women just aren't like that.
Yeah.
And so, you get upset that you might not be invited out or you're not considered one of the guys, but they don't look at women that way. So and then like, I get it, it just sucks because I am used to that. I grew up in New York City, It
really does suck. I have female comedian friends. They're usually like, I headline wherever I go. So I bring openers with me. They're usually headliners also. So I can't say, hey, you come with me, where I'd be fine with them because they're such close friends that I can talk to them like they're one of my sisters or they are one of my best friends. So we can talk the way we do and never worry that there's going to be some kind of incident where they're going to go, oh, he said this or he did that. But when it's a professional thing, like I don't know, sometimes you hire someone that you don't know and you bring them in. And if it's a guy, there's never that tension of, oh, that could have been construed as sexual or pressure, man over a woman, or the power, the power structure, anything like this.
So, I have a problem where I learned the hard way that I can't just have any women around me because I do have a network into professional athletes. And I did have something happen to me early on that I was naive to it. And I have to be really careful. I really have to screen the women and their intentions of why they want to be friends with me. Mm-hmm. It's something you never think about, these little things. But when you have this network of celebrities or athletes or things like that, you have to really look at people's intentions of, now I do. I just never thought I had to,
especially that world. I didn't want to go off on that tangent.
Yeah.
It was like,
we could talk more about, because I have so much knowledge about nutrition. I'm sure people want to learn stuff. So.
I know they're listening to me going, now shut up, Eddie. Yeah, you do have a ton of knowledge. I do love that you work with athletes, and there's so much I want to talk to you. I told my listeners, I'm like, I want to talk about milk today. I've been looking for a water expert forever that I wanted to talk about, like just really nerd out on water, but I kind of want to nerd out on milk. But before I do, I'm so interested in like what you do with your athletes, because I'm older now and I can't gain a pound of muscle. It's like, I've gotten that age that I'm like, is it happened?
I mean, it's hard, it is hard. As we get older, it's harder and harder. And the more experienced we are in lifting and as athletes, it's really hard to put on muscle. I mean, the best thing that you can do is, make sure you're having, and depending on how old you're, we start to need almost 20% more protein. And I don't know what type of protein you're using. If it's if it's a plant-based protein, now we're looking at another 20% more need of protein, and so you could have a 40% diet of protein at that point. And that's why, I'm not against any type of diet whatsoever, but when you are plant-based, you have to consider the quality of protein and how your body can digest it and utilize it. It is what it is.
I just had a smoothie before the show, and I went to this place. I'm in where my parents are, so I don't go to it often. And I've gone like 3 or 4 days to get one now. And they have only plant-based protein, and I'm not a fan. Because of
and then these places were like, oh, yeah, like we have spirulina protein. Oh, thanks for nothing. I mean, spirulina is great to like throw in something, sure, but like it's not going to get me my 30 grams of protein, about bioavailable protein,
And I said today, I finally kind of not snapped, but I said to the girls working there, I go, "Are the owners vegans?" I was like, because why don't you offer whey protein? Like, why does it have to be pea protein?
Is it a whole plant-based place? I mean, is there any dairy in there at all? Maybe that's why.
I think so. I think it is.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling it's one of these things, like Pittsburgh's a little behind the times. Like I live in LA, where we're so lucky to get so many options and everybody knows so much about nutrition, as does probably a lot of people in Florida, people in New York. Usually coastal people are quicker to it. And wherever there's more vanity, where people are taking off their clothes more often there. But I have a feeling it's just out of kind of, this is not nice to say, but ignorance, where they just assume, it's that mentality of meat's bad, meat protein's bad, whey protein, any animal protein is bad for you. It's not healthy. So we're going to opt for, because I said, are they vegans? And if they're not vegans, then like, what are they doing? Like, I understand.
At least give an option, right? At least
yeah, like option. If that's your ethical belief, which we don't have many vegans that listen to the show. So I really think the whole vegan attitude of animal protection and everything, I'm like, I get it. You don't want people eating animals. Are you going to stop bears from catching salmon? Are you going to stop animals from eating other animals? Is that next on the agenda? And
well, some people, it's also just their health. It's not so much animal welfare as much as they just don't, they have their issues. I don't know.
Sure.
Their issues, that whole, what was that Game Changers thing? It came out 2 years ago. I want to stab my eyeballs out.
The one about the MMA guy.
No, the Game Changers, and they had, it was about meat, and then they used football players for it. So, that was like every year. This was actually the first year where we didn't have like a theme. Like every year there's something that the guys come out of the season with of like, Jack, is this true? And like, 1 year was the keto thing. Another year, last year was the Game Changers thing. They don't want to eat meat. There's always this trend, of like what they want to try to do. I haven't had it this year. And I think part of it's because not everyone's like in the same place. It's a little different. Right. But there's always some documentary going around.
I remember the Game Changers thing, but that came around the time the MMA athlete, I think he was part of it. The guy,
was he part of it? I don't even remember.
He did it. Here's what it was. It was an MMA fighter who got really into being a vegan, and he tried to prove why this is the way. And he went head to head with Chris Kresser on the Joe Rogan show then. And they had a big fight. It was like a 3-hour fight about which is better. And basically they both proved that, plant-based.
I heard that with Chris Kresser. I wanted to punch him through the rate. He was so wrong about so many things. First of all, Chris Kresser is not a nutritionist. I mean, he was arguing about this peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I wanted to
that was the other guy. That was the other
guy. Okay. The other guy then. Okay. I was like, oh, you were so
Chris
off.
Was the guy arguing for me.
So, and that's but Chris didn't have enough knowledge to argue him. Like, I would have put that guy in his place with that peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Because first of all, like wheat protein it's like a 30% bioavailable protein, So, and how much peanut butter are you going to eat? Like, let's be realistic. Let's be realistic in the amount of calories people can take in a day, and like how that pea was like, oh, it has 17 grams of protein. Yeah, like that is a huge peanut butter and jelly sandwich, A. B, it's got a ton of calories. C, it's probably about like maybe 12 grams of bio, like that you're going to actually be able to absorb.
We had this argument one time. What is the most bioavailable protein? Is it eggs?
Whey.
Yeah. Whey, I've heard whey is the most digestible, like whey.
Well, that's the same thing. Like your body can digest it, can utilize it the best. Okay. Eggs are up there, but they're not. I think it's whey and then meat and then eggs. Like they're up there, anything animal protein.
For muscle building, would meat be better because of creatine and or are you better off with whey because it's more digestible?
It's more digestible. But like you said, there is creatine, there's B vitamin, there's zinc, there's other nutrients that you get in from it, but you'd be okay just doing, if you wanted to just, well, I don't want you to just do whey protein because that's just a powder, but if you want, but it is the most bioavailable, So it's easy to get down. You can drink it, right? If you're trying to put on weight, like you don't want to eat tons and tons and tons of meat. Protein's really satiating. It's really filling.
Yeah,
so it's easier to drink it. I always tell people, and I see this is one of the tricks of gaining weight. I see these athletes will be drinking like a protein shake. It's like 20 ounces. And I'm like, what do you put in it? Protein and water. Well, why would you drink 20 ounces of something that's 120 calories when it could be 1,000 calories? Like if you're going to drink that, put a ton of stuff in there and, and make yourself really gain weight. You said something earlier about like the 50 grams of protein. You're like, can my body really like use all that? And the answer is yes, because when we have these, we see like the maximum amount for muscle protein synthesis, protein's used for every single system in your body. It's not just being used for muscle. So your body is able to utilize more than, 25, 30 grams of protein is sitting. And then we also think about keeping ourselves, there's muscle protein breakdown. So we think about that as well. We want to keep ourselves at a positive amino acid balance. So, not all of your protein is going to muscle, and people forget that.
I've heard the argument, people go, oh, that's a really expensive diet to pee out. Like if you're going to eat that much meat and that much protein, you're just peeing half of that out. And so they're like, you're not going to be able to absorb more than 30 grams in a sitting. So why are you, like you'll eat a steak that's 60 grams of
I mean, 30 might go to muscle protein synthesis, and I think it's even a little bit more. But like I said, there's other systems in your body that need protein, and like every system in your body. And then the other part is you were saying about, now I forget. You just said something. It just totally totally triggered me about. I'll try and remember it. I forget now.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about milk, and it goes back to whey. Like there's a lot of milks out there, like one of the milks that is a sponsor of the show, like Slate milk, that has a higher protein content in it than most milks. And I see these all the time, and I'm like, well, why do I even do a protein shake when I can just drink this? Like, what's the benefit? Because there are the calories of the fat, and I know some people have dairy problems. So is that the only, if I don't have a problem with dairy, why don't I just drink milk instead of protein shakes all the time?
Because milk only doesn't have as much protein as the whey does. It's not isolated.
But some of these new milks do.
Because they add stuff into it. And they're also like, a lot of them are lactose free, which is great. They remove the lactose. So that's helpful for people that are lactose intolerant, because a lot of people are lactose intolerant. So that helps. But they add, I'm going to look at the ingredients. They definitely add protein into it. It's not just like this magical milk. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So it's a milk blend. And then they put lactase in it to get rid of the lactose. That's the enzyme that breaks down lactose.
Oh, so that's how they do it. That's how they get rid of that. I don't have a lactose problem, but who knows? Like I've heard the argument that sometimes that milk can give, like people are allergic, that kids can experience acne from it, and that was a cause of acne, which I don't know if that's a fallacy or.
So there is some, dairy can be inflammatory for people that have autoimmunity or that have some type of underlying inflammatory problem. If you are healthy, dairy is fine. It's not going to set off autoimmunity. It's not going to cause issues for you. And everyone's different. So it's hard to give a blanket statement. Now, If you're somebody who has autoimmunity, then no, you want to stay away from dairy, because those proteins, it's that molecular mimicry, the same kind of thing, how gluten affects them. There is some evidence showing that people that have problems with their skin, it can be inflammatory and cause more acne. But that's a small subset of people. Not everybody is walking around and cannot have dairy. So when people say these blanket statements like dairy is bad for you, dairy is bad for you if you already have an underlying health issue. But if you don't, there's so many great benefits of dairy as well. There's so many nutrients in it. It's like nature's fuel.
I think what happened was the CrossFit community, which was so large and grew so fast. Rob Wolf wrote the book, The Paleo Solution, and in the paleo diet, it was very anti-dairy. And I think right away there was this, so many people were like, I can't have dairy. I'm blah, blah, blah. I'm paleo.
And then there's that misconception, like it's not all dairy. So like it's the A1 casein protein that's inflammatory. That's in cow's milk, right?
Right.
The A2 casein protein, which is in sheep's milk and goat's milk, is not inflammatory. So you can still, even with autoimmunity, have sheep's milk, have goat's milk. So, you can't rule out all milk all across the board. And then there's some other things with paleo. I think paleo has some really good roots in it, and there's some great things about it. But if you are a active CrossFitter and somebody who's working out like more than just around one class per day, say, most people do, they start to get that itch and they're doing competitive training. You need more carbohydrates than what paleo can provide for you.
We talk about it on the show all the time. And it's like these guys are insane if they're trying to go without more carbohydrates. It's like you need so much. Matt Fraser was just on Joe Rogan's show, and he was talking about how much carbs he would eat after a workout. He would drink like glasses of Gatorade powder. Like he would put like 5 scoops in to get glycogen back into his muscles after, a whole day of workouts, because
But see, now that is a situation where we know you can only absorb like 60 grams per hour. We have different glut pathways, right? There's like 4 different pathways that carbohydrates can be absorbed up. And so we can access 2 different ones by using 2 different forms of carbohydrates, but we do cap out. So like if you're drinking 4 Gatorades, like that's not all going to be absorbed. Plus your glycogen gets replaced at a certain point, right? And so we like look at that when we refuel after fights, right? After a weigh-in, we do it like step by step by step. You know, we're not just like, okay, you weighed in, like, here you go. You're going to get sick. You're going to almost have like a dumping syndrome type situation going on. So you have to be careful. You know, I'm sure Matt knows what he's doing and he's got it down to a science, you know. He also doesn't deplete himself. Like he's not putting himself in a depleted state, you know, completely like they do with weigh-in. So it's a little bit different, but I think 4 Gatorades is probably a waste. And I would definitely use different fuel sources.
He wasn't drinking Gatorade. He said whatever who his nutritionist was, he said he would put like 4 scoops into one
of the carbohydrate powder. Yeah.
He would just to try to, and I can look, I don't work out anywhere near as hard as him, but I've done some like endurance races and stuff where you do feel completely depleted.
Drained,
and it's like, I use something, I'm trying to think of what I use a thing called Tailwind when I've done like an ultra race and when I was training for that. And, you know, people would go, well, what do you know, how you're just taking sugar? And I'm like, yeah, I am.
But there's a huge science to that. Like, you know, because we will overload, there's osmolality that happens in our gut. Right. And so that's why you hear about leaky gut and stuff. And so there is people are like, and endurance athletes are the last ones to hire nutritionists, which is crazy because there's such a science behind it. You know, we know that like how many hours or how many minutes based on your body weight, based on how much you're sweating, there's a certain amount that you need to refuel. And how much, and you have to balance the electrolytes with the carbohydrates because both are molecules that carry weight. And so there is really a huge science to this. And people just like, I'm just going to do it on my own.
I think they're crazy not to, because I did this race with a lot of professional athletes and very few of us finished. And I'm nowhere near the athlete of these guys, or I was a lot older than all of them too. And all I did was I did a lot of research on my fuel. And I realized, I was like, it's like a car engine. I can't redline, and I've got to keep the carbohydrates in me because I'm going to use a lot of my fat storage during it. But when I'm redlining, like when I go up hills and stuff, I'm going to go into this place where I'm burning glycogen and I'm going to burn through it. So I've got to keep constantly refueling it. So
once you hit that wall, and I'm sure you've seen it with people, then they're done. Like once you hit that wall, you can't come back, you know, and a lot of people hit that. They learn that throughout their racing career, right?
I was so lucky to not, I mean, I did it once in a marathon. I did hit that wall, but I was so lucky to just keep constantly fueling and do it in a smart way. And then it did get, you know, they talked about pallet fatigue, and that did happen where I couldn't believe how, like, at a certain point, I didn't want to eat any more Stroop waffles. I didn't want to eat any of the things in my bag. And I got to like the check-in zone. I'm like, what? You get a double from In-N-Out? I'll do 2 of those. And I was just shoving food in my face, but because it was, you know, 50, 60 miles in, and I was just like, anything, just get calories in my body, however I can get them in. But I think there was something to, and I think those races are almost completely nutrition oriented. Like it's all about the fuel. It's like you've got to,
and very few people will pay attention to that. And sometimes I do work with endurance athletes and they'll be like, wow. So I actually have an NFL player who will ride in off season. He rides his bike. He does pretty big rides. Like they'll do 20, 30 miles on Saturday and Sunday. And so when we started dialing in this nutrition for that, he was like, oh my God, that was such a game changer. Like such a game changer. Yeah. Because, you know, so many people in all areas with nutrition, you know, they're getting by on what they're doing and they're like, yeah, no, I'm good. But like, they don't even know what great performance and great feels like because they've never felt it. They don't even realize that they shouldn't be so tired. They don't even realize that they should be recovering faster. They don't, you know, they're just like, they think they're getting by because of their like high from their workout, but there's so much more to it. And until you feel it and know it, you don't even know what it feels. You didn't even know that life existed, you know?
When you worked at the CrossFit gym, was it hard because all the CrossFitters are know-it-alls?
No, not at all. But also, and I am trying to think because I've been affiliated with other ones where I've done seminars at and stuff. No, you know, I think in Manhattan also it's a little bit different clientele in there. You know, we had some doctors. Everyone's in like, you know it on their profession, but they weren't like the type of like they know it all in nutrition. So I would do seminars. People were really receptive. I didn't really get that vibe at all. People were always interested in asking questions and inquiring and wanted to know more stuff. So they came up with really good questions a lot of times. And so that was good. But no, I never got that vibe that like, it wasn't like that in there.
Well, I'm noticing you talked about how there's a new trend every time. I feel like the trend right now is a keto-based diet that everybody's into where they're carbing up before a workout.
Targeted ketogenic dieting. Yeah. And so like the question is, are you really in ketosis? Who knows? That's a really heavy balance. So unless you're checking your blood ketones. Now, the longer you're in ketosis, the easier it is to like jump right back into it. So I do think that some people can really can figure that out, but it's probably very few. Very few people are going to be like fueling with carbs right before, able to burn glycogen to get right back into ketosis after their workout, right? Because you already have like that insulin response from your workout anyway. So I'd love to know if these people that are they testing their blood ketones, or do they just make pretend that they're doing targeted ketosis, And so I did a ketogenic diet for about 9 months, and I was weightlifting at the time, pretty heavy. And I did it because I did a lot of research on that with concussions of football players. And in my head was like, okay, well, if I ever have to have an athlete do this, I want to know what it feels like. And this was before there was like keto foods out, and I still to this day, a huge proponent, like I'll do ketogenic diet with people, not certain athletes. I won't let them do it with regular general population people. There's a time and place for things, and I'll run it with them. But I tell them my number one rule is you're not allowed to buy these keto products. You have to use whole foods. These keto products with the sugar alcohols and the erythritol, and you're going to destroy your gut long term. And so do it with whole foods, and it can be done. And so that's how I had to do it. There was no keto foods. So with that being said, it took me, and I have the diary, and sometimes I read it. It took me 6 to 8 weeks to fully be adapted. I used to come home, I would write in this diary, like, I feel like I'm going to die in this spot, because I was a personal trainer running around Manhattan, going to people's, I do probably 5 miles a day by foot, training people, training myself for 2 hours, and then riding a bike back home across Manhattan. I would get in my house and I'd like literally thought my life was going to end. I mean, and sometimes during training, I would feel that way. It took me, I really think about 7 weeks to start to feel the positive side of ketosis. Wow. Then I stayed in it for a really, really long time.
Were you doing the finger pricks to check? Or
the blood keto? Yeah, I had the keto monitor. It was hard for me personally. It was hard for me to stay in ketosis, even though I didn't have any carbs. My body just like did not love. Like I wasn't one of those people producing like 1.5 or 2.0. Like if I got to 1, it was super lucky. I hung out around 0.5 or 0.7. But I was in ketosis, and I stayed in it for a really long time. Moved down to Atlanta during all of it, and then I forget why I went off of it, but the positive sides for me is it really helped me find out a lot more about my gut health and what things were bothering my stomach. And because I had a lot of gut problems, and that's how I found out I had a gluten intolerance. I didn't know until I went off of ketosis. And then I was like, oh, wow, all these stomach problems are coming back. What is it? Oh, it's great. It's gluten and grains and all this stuff. So
yeah, I mean, I think everybody, when they go clean, start to find out, oh, I do have a gluten intolerance or an intolerance to these things, but I just have adapted to it. I've learned to tolerate it. It's like alcohol. I don't drink really anymore like I used to. When I was drinking, I could drink all day long, all night long, and a little hangover here.
Deal with it.
Now,
well, you brought up a really good point, and this is like food intolerance testing, right? People are like, oh, I took this Everwell intolerance test or whatever it may be. The best way to figure, like, save your money, because there's so much, we can get into that whole thing about how the tests are just, the mediators are produced because you're eating these foods anyway, and like how relevant these tests are. There's like no great food intolerance test out there. Just do an elimination diet and you're going to find out. And you're going to have to do elimination diet either way, right? So do an elimination diet, reintroduce foods every 72 hours, like we're going to have to do anyway. Save your money on that stupid test. Save the fear of foods that it might make you think you can't have, because that's a huge part of it. And that's how we figure it out. We slowly reintroduce foods. And what bothers you bothers you.
That happened to me. I had a really bad stomach problem. I don't know if I get tested for everything, and they couldn't find a bacterial infection. Didn't know what it was, whatever it was horrendous. And that was like, and I was trying just like eating chicken and rice and just eat food and like sourdough toast, and still getting sick, and it got to the point where it was like, well, let's just start trying one food at a time and see what the food is that you can eat. And you can just keep adding foods that aren't making you sick. And I think it was one of those things, I don't know if it's insoluble or soluble fiber. It's basically what I needed. I just needed more
fiber.
Yeah, I was eating like broccoli and cauliflower, and it was making me better. It was weirdly what I needed. I don't know if is that soluble
So
fiber?
your fiber was low. Is that how it was?
I don't
Is
know.
that what the problem was?
I don't know what it was. It just, it's pretty gross. I don't want to get into it because it's like,
I talk about poop all day long. Other people probably don't want to hear it.
Well, I talk about it because I'm a comedian and I think it's the funniest thing in the world. But sometimes like I didn't want to do it if you didn't.
I always talk about poop.
I had the shits all day long, all day for like 2 weeks straight. And I thought it came from shellfish, some like bad fish I ate or something like crabs or shrimp or something. And I just couldn't get back. And I was like, something's really wrong.
Just randomly out of the blue. It wasn't like something you were living with chronically.
No, it was just a random thing. I ate like a crab cake sandwich. And it could have been after the crab cakes. I ate like a pint of that, as my buddy calls it, Frankenfoods, the erythritol ice cream.
Yeah, exactly. The erythritol. Oh my God. Forget about it.
It destroyed me.
Destroys you, right? That's why I say no keto foods. Those are keto foods.
Yeah.
They kill your gut.
Guys, I want to talk to you about SlateMilk.com. Yep. This podcast is sponsored by them because we love them. Slate Milk was founded by 2 adult chocolate milk lovers. Do you know some adult chocolate milk lovers? I do, because I'm one of them. I love chocolate milk. I started eating those little cartons in grade school, and I never wanted to stop, but a lot of people do. These guys loved it so much, they started a Kickstarter. Next thing you know, they were on Shark Tank. Next thing you know, they're in 3,000 stores nationwide. Why'd you stop drinking chocolate milk, huh? What's your problem? What are you afraid of? Oh, I know. Too much sugar, lactose intolerant. That's your problem? Well, guess what? You don't have to worry about that with Slate Milk, okay? This is the better for you chocolate milk brand, okay? They're giving chocolate milk a clean slate. And here's the best. You work out a lot, you need lots of protein. They got more protein in this than regular milk. This is high in protein, low in sugar, lactose-free, and it comes in a can. Why does it come in a can? Because they're not bad to the environment. And we're about that here at the WodCAST. I really like products that really, really, especially no plastic. No plastic, come in a can. That's the best way to do it, a bottle or a can. These are delicious, and they've got 17 grams of protein. It's almost like having a protein shake. 17 grams. Some protein, that's all you're going to get. This is 17 grams of protein, and it's also 75% less sugar than regular chocolate milk. They got 3 different flavors. Classic chocolate milk that tastes just like your favorite milk chocolate treats. Dark chocolate milk designed to resemble a 72% cacao bar. That's mine right there. That's my go-to. And then espresso chocolate milk that's extra chocolatey, and it's kind of like a mocha latte, and it's got 150 milligrams of caffeine, which is like a little more than a coffee. And it's brewed with real Colombian coffee. So look, you can have this for breakfast. It's a big boost. You can have it at 3 p.m. as a pick-me-up, or you could use it as a protein-packed post-workout. It's the healthier chocolate milk designed to be chugged every day. All right. So, like I said before, the cans are 100% recyclable, and Slate is a certified plastic neutral organization. So I like them for that. Here you go. Go to the discount code. Go to slatemilk.com. That's SLATE milk.com and use WodCAST 15 for 15% off all 12 packs. Okay. So that's slatemilk.com, SLATEMILK.com. Use the code WodCAST15. You're going to get 15% off all 12 packs. How about that? The only food that is like one of these sugars that I tolerate, and I tolerate it very, very well, is the allulose. That I feel like
allulose. Yeah, allulose is good. It does work well. It's very expensive,
Yep.
And that's why it's not in a lot of products. But
it's
allulose,
not in a lot of products, and I think it's maybe the solution though for a lot of people, because it doesn't spike your insulin, it doesn't do all the bad things that sugar does, and it tastes really good.
It almost tastes so much like sugar. I'm not used to it, that when I use allulose, it's like tastes so sweet to me because I'm not used to it. Tastes like I don't really ever eat sugar, and it tastes so much like sugar,
And that shows you how much you don't eat sugar, because I think it's like 85% as sweet as sugar, whereas like a stevia is like twice as sweet. And
really, stevia tastes like
I hate stevia. But allulose, I didn't even know how to pronounce it. I have a friend that has cancer right now. And, you know, I'm just like, she's like, the doctors don't do anything about nutrition with cancer. And I'm like, please look into your diet completely and talk to nutritionists that work with cancer patients. You know, and they sent me what the doctors recommended. And it was the American Cancer Institute has a plant-based diet that they recommend. And I said, look, I don't want to, you know, who am I to tell you to go against the American Medical Association or the American Cancer Association, whatever it is. But I said, you know, it just seems to me that kind of diet right there is adding a lot of glycogen. And from everything I read and hear, the glycogen adds to the growth of tumors. So I don't know why they would be recommending that. Now, I'm not saying go full keto, but I would.
Well, there's some theories. I mean, I don't know much about it, so I can't speak to it too much, but I have listened to some arguments from some really well-respected people that ketogenic diet is not the answer either. And I do follow a woman on Instagram she does work in cancer nutrition.
Nasha Winter?
And no, she's smaller person. You know, she graduated when I did kind of thing. She has her PhD with her thesis in cancer, and she works in nutrition for cancer, which is like, you don't see that very often. I have people come to me all the time and said, you know, I just came from Sloan Kettering and they really didn't tell me what to do. I don't know what to do, you know? And so there's definitely a need for that out there, but you know, and I just, some really smart people like keto is not the answer to cancer either. You know? I think when it comes to like extremes, and we know keto started from helping with seizures, right? We know that. But even in the epileptic kids, they're starting to see really bad long-term problems to their gut microbiome from being on a ketogenic diet for long-term. So interesting.
Cause I've gone down these wormholes before and I don't know enough. I don't know, 1/1000th of what you know. And, I've always been in fear of, you know, what fuels the cancer and the, you know, the carbohydrate thing just seemed to
I feel like there's so, I mean, listen, like some of us just have it. We all have cancer cells, right? It's a matter of if they grow. I think environmental is a huge thing. Genetic is a big thing, but I don't think eating whole carbohydrates, like non-processed carbohydrates, is not going to give you cancer. You know what I mean? Like I find it really hard to believe that like an actual food that comes from nature is going to give you cancer. Like whether it be, you know, I'm eating a bunch of rice or I'm eating apples or I'm eating, you know, mangoes. Like you never heard of somebody getting cancer from eating mangoes. I'm sorry. You know, now if you're eating like some type of processed, you know, mango Twinkie kind of thing, maybe, you know, because there's a lot of other things going on there. What are just elements of food?
What are your go-tos when you recommend carbohydrates to clients, like whether it be an athlete or someone else? What are you usually recommending?
So it really depends. Like if we're doing weight loss, say I'm working with a woman and, you know, some women don't get a ton of calories, which means they don't get a ton of carbohydrates. If I have a 110-pound woman, what are we going to do? Right. And so I'm going to do more nutrient dense carbohydrates. We're going to do butternut squash because you get more volume over sweet potatoes. You know, we're going to do, I love, the bean pastas are really good, you know, so we try to be really smart in that sense about the different carbohydrates. And I love like colors, right? So like I'm huge on antioxidants. So we're doing like purple carrots, root vegetables are great, like root vegetable mashes, sweet potatoes, purple potatoes, all different things like that. Black rice, I love that. And then if I have like my athletes, you know, we really have to get in a ton of carbs. So it's a whole different approach to it. I tend just, you know, I'm not against, listen, I don't think there's a problem with gluten for everybody, but because my mindset isn't that functional medicine side, when I write up plans for people, I see that I don't often put, like, I'm not throwing in a bowl of pasta, put it that way. You know, it's just not what I do. And so I guess I would say I kind of stay away from that, but we get it in other ways. And so if people need to do more volume, you know, it just depends. Do you need more volume or do you need less volume? You're never going to see me tell somebody to do a plate of vegetables as their carbohydrate, because to me, that's like totally different. That's your greens, that's your fiber, and that's your vegetables. And then we need starchy carbs. Like and you do see some nutritionists, I see it all the time now, especially with these TikToks, and they're like, here's what I ate in a day. And like their plates vegetables. And I'm like, where's your carbohydrates?
Yeah.
That's not carbo. Your body can't use that for fuel. That's your vegetables. You can't do a vegetable carbohydrate diet.
Yeah. You're not going to get it. You look at the amount of calories you get from your vegetables that you eat. In my head, I always try to go, I'm getting my vitamins and my minerals from my vegetables. I'm getting my energy from my starchy carbs. So if it's my sweet potato, my regular potato, my rice, that's where my energy is coming from. My muscle building is coming from my meat. And then my fat is doing whatever fat does, the extra energy or the
hormone balance.
Yeah.
Skin, hair, nails, yeah.
So the one thing I wish I did more extra virgin olive oil. My friend that's the healthiest person in the world, I watch him do shots of he literally will drink.
I mean, that's a luxury. I wish I could do that, but I'm a woman, so I have to always watch. Like I love avocado, so I have to like ration my fats because like I have to think about, do I want avocado in the morning or do I want egg yolks or do I want almond butter? Because egg yolks have fat and avocado is fat, and like before I know it, I'll have 30 grams of fat in my breakfast. So I have to really be careful. But I love those.
When I took one of those macro tests and started looking at, like evaluating my diet, what I found was I was eating so much fat because I'm peanut butter, I'm eggs, I'm avocados, I'm olive oil, I was coconut oil. And it was like, oh my God, I didn't realize what percentage of my diet was so much fat. And, it just shouldn't be that high. Like as much as, they're all good for you, but it doesn't mean
moderation.
Yeah, exactly. And I had to be a little more careful about that. And that's where it's like, I obviously was eating too much fat, too much carbs, not enough protein. So it was like, try to get more protein, and I eat some shitty carbs sometimes because I just have no self-control, and you put a cookie in front of me, I'm going to do it.
That's definitely never the diets. I ask people what they like. I have some guys that like love Snickers. Well, sure. Like you can have Snickers on Saturday. You can have a Snickers. I'm not going to say you can't have a Snickers. Like you work out hard all week, you want a pizza, but it's like, we pick one thing. And, my football players, all of them have the same. I already know they laugh when I say it. Like if they have a bag of something and it's open or a can, they eat it all of them. They all do. So like if you have a can of nuts and it's open, they're going to eat it all. If you have a bag of chips and it's open, they're going to eat it all. If you order a pizza, it's all going to be eaten. So
it's so funny you say my father-in-law is a former NFL player. And he told me one time that he didn't know that the lid on a pint of ice cream could go back on.
Yeah. Right.
He goes, I just thought you take it off and throw it away. And I was like, no, you save it to put it back on. He's like, why would you put it back on? And I go, because you only eat some of it. And he's like, you can do that? And I go, yes, you.
It's not one portion. It's like four.
Well, and he was like, no, I eat the whole thing.
Yeah, so, it's a thing. I mean, nowadays though, there's like, you can go to Costco and you can get portion bags of chips. You can get those, like, cost a little more, but you get them portioned out, and it helps. That helps everyone. I don't care what output you have.
Is that though, that mentality that you said your football players have? I have it where if it's open, I'll finish it. Is that a dopamine thing? Is that a satiation thing? What is that? Is that addiction? Why?
I honestly, that's a great question. I'll ask Gabby that, who does the behavioral eating with me, but it depends. Like, so I have my foods where I have like what I call like, I can't buy foods, right? And I already know like granola is on that list. Cannot do it. And for me now, I don't know if you're familiar with the Dang chips. Have you had the Dang? They're like the rice cake. They're like the little rice things, and they have a sriracha one. And I was good with them for a few years. Now it's like, I can't buy them. I'll eat the whole bag because they're so palatable. They taste so good. And I look at it, I'm like 130 calories, 3.5 servings. I could just sit here and torture myself. I just finish it. And then it's done. Right. But it adds up because like, I had Dang chips for dinner tonight. That wasn't very nutritious. Yeah. So I'm not sure, sometimes it's the hyper palatability, but I mean, I don't know. Even like you think of like the wasabi almonds, right? Like they're kind of addicting, right? Or the whatever flavors those almonds are. But at some points, like you just got to put it away. So I don't know exactly what that mentality is, but it's something that's there. I think it's a big guy mentality because they have to eat a lot. They've always been told to eat a lot. So it's
I'm not a big guy, and I have it. There are certain things that, and my wife knows it, and she'll hide them in different places in the house from me. And because I'll say, don't have it in the house. She's like, but I want it, or the kids want it. And I'm like, but I'll destroy it. And she'll go, well, we'll hide it from you. And I'm like, if it's in the house, I'll find it.
So what if she portions? So here's the thing, like say we had the big bag and then she takes it into 4s. So like,
then I know there's 3 more of them when I'm done, and I'm going to go get them.
Well, no, you don't, because like, you don't know how many are left. Cause like, let's say we started with, you don't know how many you started with. Right. So like, so if it's, then you could just finish that smaller portion and then you'd be done because it's done.
So Tate's chocolate chip cookies come in 2 little sleeves in the bag. And I say to myself, I'm only going to eat 1 sleeve. And then the next thing you know, I've destroyed 2 of them. They can't.
That's just, I think that's a self-control too, because like if I bought Tate's is like when I love their gluten-free cookies, very rarely, but if I did buy them, I would just Yeah, I know. Okay. For instance, I just looked at my cabinets because I leave cabinets open. I have a ton of different protein bars that I like. And some people cannot keep protein bars in their house. I buy them by the case. It's cheaper. Some people cannot do that. If they have a bunch of protein bars in their house, they're going to eat them all. They're going to, because it's like a snack for them. So I think some of it is, it's like a psychological self-control type of thing. You know, it's a behavioral eating thing.
Yes. And I just ban things from my house. I'm like, just don't.
Yeah, I do that. Granola, I can't. Granola, nuts, I can't. Like, I love nuts, and they're just so high in calories. Like, I was in the supermarket yesterday. I'm like, I just want some walnuts. But you know, you get 10 walnuts is 200 calories. 10. It's not fair. It's not fair.
It's not fair.
You know, they're so nutritious though. Walnuts are so good for you. They're so high in antioxidants. They have so many nutrients for your brain too. It's like,
and you look, I just ordered Magic Spoon cereal to come to my parents' house because I didn't want to eat whatever they had here. But it's got 11.
I mean, the price of that should prevent you from eating the whole box. Isn't it like $12 a box?
Unbelievable.
Like that would keep you from eating the whole box.
I just ordered four boxes was $43 on Amazon. 11 grams of protein, 3 net carbs. But like a bowl, like one serving is how many calories? 100.
Is it better than the Catalina? Have you tried that Catalina Crunch stuff?
I think I have.
It's like another like protein type cereal. It does have a little bit of erythritol in it, not tons, but it does have some. But it's good. But it's a protein tip. It's like $6 a bag instead of 12.
Yeah, this is so expensive, and my kids love it, and my wife loves it, so we just rip through it. Like it's.
And then there's like K's protein cereal. That's another one. That's plant-based. It's K's. That's a lot cheaper too.
I'm done with plant-based.
Well, I feel like it's a palate thing because for me, it's really hard. Like I keep a plant-based powder because I do have some stomach issues. So I love whey, but like I cannot, my palate does not like plant-based stuff. It's so hard for me. I really believe it's like people adapt. People that eat all plant-based, like they lose that, their palate changes because people give me stuff. They're like, you got to try this. It's so good. I'm like, I got to spit it out. I've spit stuff out. Like, I'm not swallowing that. It's so gross.
So the whey protein, like I drink whey with coconut water, and then that way in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm getting some of my carbs that I need from the coconut water. There's a lot of minerals in it. And then I'm getting my protein, and I do it usually after a workout. And then I'll do it during the day at some point when I need it, or late at night instead of me eating a snack. But, would I be better off just having a glass of milk or one of
No, you're not going to get 30 grams of protein in from, I mean, chocolate milk is great to replace glycogen and stuff, but you're not going to get 30 grams of protein in from chocolate milk.
Yeah.
Because I did a lot of it.
I did see a guy in my gym who became a monster. And I was like, how are you gaining all this weight?
Steroids. I'm sorry, but like most people that are not drug tested, like let's keep it real, they are on PEDs, like performance enhancing drugs. So if you think somebody looks like it's something more than what it is, men and women, I hate to say it, but there's like people cheat. They just do.
That's so funny. My last episode was with one of the CrossFitters that got busted for PEDs.
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time, and there are some elite human beings out there, and most of them are pro athletes because of it. And obviously, like the NFL tests, people are not doing that stuff, and they get busted. But when it comes to normal humans that we're seeing in our gyms, they're all on different stuff, men, women. And I tell women, like, you're not going to look like that because she is not natural. She is on something. And unfortunately, that is going to weigh heavy on her when she becomes her late 30s, early 40s. There is no up without a down or no down without an up,
And there's also problems with your joints and things like that aren't going to be able to handle that. Your muscles
you don't want to mess with your hormones until you have to, because at some point in your life, I tell this to everybody, at some point in your life, you are going to have to take hormone replacement therapy if you can afford it, if you're one of the lucky ones. And then you'll be a slave to it then, then you have to, but don't do it earlier in life, because at some point you're going to want to, you have to, you're going to want to, right? I mean, like I always say, like my goal in life is by the time I hit menopause, I just want to be able to afford hormone replacement therapy, because I see the difference between my clients who are on it and who aren't, and their mental state and their quality of life and how good they feel, because it's not even just about your body. It's about how your brain's working. Sure. They are so much happier. They feel so much better. They look better. They feel better. And so like, if you want to mess with your hormones when you're younger, it's going to mess you up worse when you're older. And just like, wait until you have to do it.
But let's talk about this when it goes to hormones. I I was listening to an episode of the Rogan show where he's discussing with some guys that were helping guys with PTSD and people with severe concussions and all this stuff with hormone therapy, and getting, like he was saying, oh, they tried drugs for the SSRIs and antidepressants and things with them, and nothing was working for these guys. But all of a sudden, when they started doing hormone therapy, and you're saying that, like, when we all get to this certain age, we need this hormone therapy. And I see guys that are on either human growth hormone or TRT, and it's amazing. And they're like my age, and they've got like 6% body fat, and they look amazing. And it's like, okay, we get it. We know it's that, and it looks awesome. But evolutionarily, our bodies, why is that? Why is our body not able?
We just produce less and less as we get older. We just do, especially women when it comes to like HGH. I mean, that's something that's more menopausal for women, but you also have to be careful. Like, human growth hormone grows all your cells. So once again, we see you could have cancer. I know personally people who did steroids and PEDs when I was younger that did get cancer from human growth hormone. And that's why you have to really be with a doctor that you trust, that you really, really trust, that isn't just, because I get people that come to me once again that, especially women, doctors want to take them on a run for their money. So you get people in LA, people in Las Vegas, people in Miami. These doctors are like, yeah, you need hormone replacement therapy. Of course, they're going to tell you that. It costs them nothing, and they charge you so much money. So you have to really be careful and just be with a doctor that you trust, that they're going to stay within reasonable levels, that you're on this long journey for the next 30, 40 years of your life with these hormones.
Sure.
And so, that you really do need it when you start, and that you're taking the right amounts, because they get hormone happy.
Yeah.
And you're trusting them, right?
Yeah.
But our body starts to produce less and less, but it does affect our brain. And we also know that from people who are on steroids, at a younger age, and how it affects their brain. It almost makes you crazy, and everything's tied in. All of our hormones.
It was
are all
interesting.
Tied in.
I did Inside Tracker and had them test my blood and show me where I was nutrient deficient and blah, blah, blah. And one of the things, like my testosterone was great. And I was like really surprised that it was still at my age. And
your free testosterone or your total?
Yeah,
they did both, right?
But total was good. But what happened was my sex binding globulin.
Hormone globulin, yeah.
Yeah. Was where there was an issue. And it's like, well, if that's not working, then I'm not getting the testosterone. So
then your free testosterone had to be lower. So like if you're a sex hormone binding globulin, right? If that's high, then usually like your free testosterone will be low. So you can have total testosterone, but if the question is, what's your circulating usable testosterone, right? Sure.
And I guess it's not that good because of that. And I said to her, what do I need to eat? How can I change this nutritionally? What can I do? And she said, you do CrossFit. And I said, yeah. She said, oh, a lot of CrossFitters have this issue. And
because your cortisol is so high. And so cortisol counteracts testosterone. And I do this with my pro athletes as well. We work really hard. We know from studies that starters on the NFL have higher cortisol by like 2 months into the season than people that aren't starters. So I try as much as I can to regulate their cortisol. There's only so much we can do, but there are some supplements and there are some actual meditations and stuff. But huge thing with CrossFitters that do too much. You're not eating enough. You're on a paleo diet where you're not fueling your workout and you're doing comp training. And on top of that, the idea of a CrossFitter's rest day, or what's that, active rest, is like, oh, I'm going to bike 20 miles. And that's not active rest. Active rest is you're going to walk on the beach. Active rest is you're going to play volleyball with your boys, enjoy something. Like active rest is not like, I'm going to row, 10,000 meters today. People are nuts. I'm like, that's not active rest. No, you have to rest to lower your cortisol, to give your body balance. And if you're not taking enough calories, that's a stressor too. And right, cortisol balances out testosterone and also insulin. So
is there any foods that you can eat that'll lower your cortisol?
I think it's just giving yourself enough food, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. It's not that there's specific foods, it's making sure that you're eating enough food to keep up with your output. Because once you get, and this is why intermittent fasting becomes an issue, especially for women. We wake up, we already have high cortisol. That's just normal. We should have higher cortisol in the morning. We're fasting when you don't have food, your cortisol is higher. And then when you're exercising, your cortisol goes up, which is normal for exercise. And so now we have people you're in this hyper cortisol state, and then you're wondering why you're having trouble with your metabolism. It's no, you need to eat in the morning. You need to let your body regulate. So it's really a matter of eating and chilling out and giving yourself rest days and thinking about you know what, your active rest maybe should be sleeping all day or just watching TV.
I don't know if this question is quantifiable, if you're able to answer it, but I'm curious, which is going to make you retain or spike your insulin more and make you retain fat? Is it going to be stress or is it going to be glycogen? Like eating sugar, is sugar?
No, I mean, if we're healthy, and I wear a continuous glucose monitor for a month, and like I'm healthy, like even when I exercise or when I eat something with high sugar, like my glucose might go up to like 130, but like it's back down in 45 minutes. It's done. It's over with. It's not staying there because I'm healthy. And guess what? Most of us are healthy. Most of us don't have diabetes or pre-diabetes. There's a subset that does, but most of us people that work out a lot, we don't have to worry about that. We can eat sugar and it's going to come back down because our metabolism does what it's supposed to do. Our body's smart. If you have insulin resistance, it's a different story. So eating sugar is not the problem. You know what I mean? And then, so you said like, was it, and stress. So stress will spike your blood sugar as well. And I saw that with, and that's not everyone, but myself, like when I was in high stress situations, my glucose would rise. And I was like, wow, that was one of the, I didn't learn much from it, but I learned that stress really raises my glucose levels.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really interesting to see that because like twice I was in these really stressful situations and I looked and I was like, whoa, I'm like, it almost is as high as when I'm lifting. And like lifting is normal. You want, it's going to go up. That's just normal. So you're, pulling carbohydrates in your cell. But yeah, when I'm in stressful situations, my blood sugar rose. So yeah, it's not good for you.
My buddy who I have on the show sometimes, who's a really, really good nutritionist, that's what he's always like, I wish we could have everybody wear a glucose monitor. And no,
I don't. And I talked to the company about it because it causes a lot of fear around food, and people that are healthy don't have to worry about it. Like if I even at one point was afraid to eat certain foods because I was like, oh, it's going to bring my blood sugar up. And I'm like, whoa, Jack, like get that out of your head. Now, if I'm thinking that, and I know that, think about other people who don't know. And
but I think initially though, people would maybe just wear it for like I used a Whoop and I used it for a short time to kind of generally feel like, oh, I'm not resting it. And I got a general idea of everything. Like I can't go 4 hours and then work out. I should actually sleep or not work out that day if I only had 4 hours sleep.
Yeah.
There are certain things that actually, after a month of it, taught me. So like wearing a glucose monitor for a month would give me, I know this food now, and this food that I thought wasn't bad is really bad. And this food is good. And,
but that's the problem. Now we're labeling foods as like bad and not bad. And like, if you're healthy, I mean, like I said, if it's whole foods, it's not bad unless you're eating like, junk food, but now we're labeling foods as like bad. Just right. Well, maybe in that case, but like, just cause I ate a banana, my blood sugar went up doesn't mean that it's a bad food. I just think that there's so much, like if somebody wears that, they have to really be working with a nutritionist to understand how to utilize that data. But like you said, so that was a great point. You slept for 4 hours because sleep is huge in weight regulation because it helps, like all of our hormones are replaced in our sleep and our body's repairing, and it helps reduce our stress. So you have to sleep. And so that's why I was saying earlier, you, instead of going, on this active rest, whatever, maybe you need to sleep. And you think about that, if you only have 4 hours of sleep, it's really smart not to work out because you're going to cause more stress on your body, and you'll probably lose weight by not working out that day,
Yeah. That's been the biggest things I've changed. I was one of those guys in the beginning of the show. I've been doing this 10 years where it was workout 6 days a week, sometimes twice a day. And also like a day for me would be like, do a workout, go surf, finish surfing, go for a mountain bike.
Right. And it's like mentally you could do it. Listen, I'm the same way. Like I did a 15K or something bike race the other morning for cancer, and we got done. They were doing a 5K and I was like, let's run. Like, my brain is so stupid. Meanwhile, I got home from that bike race and I was wiped, and I didn't carb load before it, but like I had that morning, I had pancakes and oatmeal. When I tell you I got home and I couldn't even keep my eyes open by 10:30, I literally laid in bed eating carbs all day. I couldn't even move. I had a migraine. I mean, and I'm in great shape. I just, my body was like, what the heck did you do to me? My adrenaline was pumping so much. And like, I was out there with my athletes in this bike race, and it felt great while I was doing it, but man, I beat myself up. And like all my body wanted to do was eat carbs the rest of the day.
And doing that, and I think there's a lot of listeners out there that are like this. You think, well, I can do it. I'm getting better because my body's adapting to these stresses that I'm putting on it. But what I just found was I was getting colds more, I was getting hurt more, and it was like there was a point of diminishing return. And I had to start pulling back. And it's so hard. Some of the pro athletes that I have on the show have said their coaches pull back on them. And they're like, wait, but I'm competing against these guys. And they're like, fine, you're going to do fine in competition. But right now, we can't train like this. We can't train as hard as you used to train because you're getting older. You're needing more rest. You're needing more. And they're like,
that's humbling. I mean, I don't know how old you are. I'm 42. And so the changes I saw from like 35 was in the best shape of my life. 38, I work out with 21-year-old NFL players, you know what I mean? But I'm not going to lie, like the past 2 years, it's been a little bit different. As much as like my Olympic weightlifting, I can't forget a 5-day week program. Heck no. I'm lucky if I could do a 4-day week program and feel really good to keep going. And something's not really bothering me. Like my injury, I have to have a full day of recovery. And like, I want to lift tomorrow.
Sure.
My brain wants to lift tomorrow, but if I do that, then I'm going to be out probably for a week because I'm going to do something stupid during that lift. Like I can't control it. Your body needs more time to repair. Well, it's the most humbling thing in the world.
I think CrossFit and a lot of the people got really good because CrossFit, Glassman's concept was, you're a fireman, you have to run up 40 flights of steps one day. You might have to do that the next day. So you got to be ready for it. But I think a lot of programming, a lot of coaches started to say, look, if your legs are sore the next day, we're going to do your upper body, like give it the rest. And so there started to be this smart programming that just started to circulate of, we're going to isolate body parts. And like, if we're doing a lower body workout on a Friday or on a Thursday, on Friday, we're going to do an upper body because we can't have you, just beating yourself
right?
Up like that.
Well, so this is another thing, like some CrossFit, and this is one thing, a benefit of being in New York is I was really spoiled. Like I was around some of the best CrossFit programming in the world and some of the most amazing CrossFit coaches that like, I've really been exposed to that. And then when I moved, I was like, oh, wow, there's some really crappy, you drop in places, you're like, wow, there's some really crappy programming going on out there. You know what I mean? And so that's the question is, do we have people doing the programming that are really educated and smart and know what they're doing? That doesn't happen in every facility,
not at all.
And when you're at the best of the best, it does, and you get spoiled. That's how I always knew if I was like in a good CrossFit gym or not. Cause I have a background in exercise science too. So like I understand programming, and so I think it's great if it's actually applied and done correctly. And then like, and here, let's not people have to remember, like, is this your job? If it's not your job, you are not a pro athlete. You're not Matt Fraser. You are not, whatever, you're not Patrick Mahomes. Like your job is not this, this is a hobby. This is something to keep you healthy and fit. So like you have to remember that.
Try telling them that. That's the issue I've had with this forever. I've always had to tell everybody, like the beginning of the show, we used to do a joke where I used to say to everybody, calm down. I wanted to have shirts that said calm down, like relax. You're not a pro athlete. There were so many, so many people in there that there was no chance of them ever making the games, that were working out like the games was next week. And I just felt like it's admirable in some ways. And I understand, you watched Rocky or whatever happened in your life that you feel like, but it's not good for you. And
it's not sustainable.
Yeah. And so many people, I did have some questions that people wrote in about milk. Because I said, I'm going to talk a lot about milk. I talked to you the other day and you're like, what I wanted to know, because I have my crazy hippie friends on one side who are like, we need to drink raw milk. It's the answer to everything. We shouldn't pasteurize milk. And then everything I read is like, they're crazy. Like you do lose some of the enzymes or some of the bacteria that's good for you. But for the most part,
so I did a lot of research, as I said I would. I get myself in PubMed for days, and I was like, listen, I don't talk about anything I don't know about. So I'm going to start this off by saying it wasn't something that I came in with like a huge amount of knowledge before last week, but I did a ton of research and I interviewed my naturopathic friends and I talked to a bunch of people. And what you're saying is true. When we look at the evidence, unfortunately, there is no research to back up these claims that it helps with allergies, that it helps with digestion, that it helps you. It's not there. And so the way I look at it is, if you want to drink raw milk and it makes you feel good, then do it. But you cannot make these claims as to it's the reason behind a bunch of stuff. I think we were, initially worried about pasteurization and this and that. And this is one thing, and I did find this from the raw milk advocates, is that you have to be careful that it is coming from a source that is still clean. And there are still standards in the raw milk industry, because it's now becoming legal, right? There's only like 8 or 10 states where it's illegal. But that the process that they're extracting this raw milk has to really be careful because of the E. coli cross-contamination. So even within the raw milk community, they're huge advocates of like, these are still places that are checked and monitored with their standards. So you can't just get it from anywhere, right? And within those standards, it's very low amounts of people that got sick, right? Because that was like the initial issue, I think, is why, the government's like, oh, you can't be, well, why did pasteurization start, right? But unfortunately, it's not like the end all be all answer. It's not like breast milk. It does not full of these like immune, whatever loaded things. There's just no evidence to back it up. And without the evidence, you can't say it. There's been research there. They can't find these answers yet. And maybe it needs to be longer term studies, or I don't know, but there really isn't evidence to back those claims up. So how can you really claim it?
I did such a little short bit of research. This is how I do everything in my life. And one thing I did see was that there was a little bit, it was one of these like causation is not correlation.
It's causation.
And it was that people that live on farms do have lower allergy, and it could be because they're just exposed to so much more in their environment.
Right. Like you're brought up, first of all, you don't have toxin loads, and you're exposed from just like, think about like the bee pollen and the peanut butter. Now they're saying like, if you give babies that are allergic to nuts, like little amounts of nuts, by the time they're a certain age, they're not going to be allergic to nuts, right? It's exposure. It's almost like a natural vaccine, right? And so, there's so many other variables. You have to think about all the other variables. You're like, well, they grew up on a farm. Well, shit, their entire environment is different than ours,
Right. So I figured that was like an epidemiological thing. Somebody wanted to know, why is oat, almond, soy milk even allowed to be called milk?
Well, here's something that people also need to think about when they get into the oat milk area, speaking of carbohydrates, is that it is loaded with carbohydrates because it is a grain, right? And so I tell people that are doing the oat milk. And then also there's the glyphosate issue. Is there glyphosate? If people are worried about that, is it GMO?
What is glyphosate? Oh, it's a GMO.
No, it is a pesticide that's used on. So there's this whole theory behind glyphosate it's like the Sugamite pathway, and it's causing a lot of gut health issues in people. It's another one of these theories where it's like, has it been proved? Has it not? There's a woman behind it. I can't think of her name, but I have to be honest with you, I'm kind of on the boat just because I've seen so many people that have like removed grains and had such, great results from it. And so this is one of the things that they're saying is like glyphosate is destroying our gut health. And it is probably a Monsanto. I think it's produced by Monsanto for sure. But it's like a fertilizer.
And it's in some of those.
It's sprayed. So if you have an oat milk, that's not like a non-GMO or, anything that has oats in it could have glyphosate on it. So the thing with oat milk is like, if you're calorie conscious, then you're not going to find a low sugar oat milk just because oats are grains. You are going to find unsweetened almond milk. You are going to find unsweetened macadamia meal. And people are like, well, almonds are bad for the environment. Make it at home. I don't know. You could delve down that pathway, but realistically, if we're talking about like what you're worried about with your calories and your diet, oat milk is not the best as far as like calories.
One of the arguments I hear is that almonds lower your testosterone, and so
but that I have never heard.
Yeah.
Why? Well, why? What in the almonds lower your testosterone?
I don't know. Crazy Bobby that I have on the show that the listeners all know, who's the healthiest 59-year-old you've ever seen in your life. Like, you see this guy and be like, he's 25, and he's just in like incredible shape. Every time he won't even let an almond get near him. He's like, that lowers your testosterone. I don't want.
Okay, so almonds have zinc, and zinc increases testosterone. I don't know. I have some clients or like some athletes where I've seen their testosterone. I'm just like, wow. And they eat tons of, almond butter, almond dip, almond this. I have like 2 that I can think at the top of my head where their testosterone levels are so high. I was like, man, no wonder you're such a great athlete. Like you're like superhuman inside and out, and they eat almonds. I don't know. I just heard this thing. What's that?
Is there a point where their testosterone's so high that it would set off like weird levels that they would think that they're using testosterone?
No, I haven't seen anything like that happen. I think that, there's like, I guess if your growth hormone was high and testosterone is high, but just like they have the things with the women, like there's one female track runner, right? And they want her to like take hormone suppressing, which is just like, that's ridiculous. So I'm sure there's probably somebody out there that could naturally produce a lot. But
I've gotten into that before with her. I forget her name. I can't pronounce it. But she was born, I don't know the proper term to use, and I don't want to say it with, because somebody will get mad at me for not saying it properly, but she was basically born without a sex. Like she was like,
okay.
And so there's a reason that she has such a high testosterone level. So I understand. I still don't think there should be an argument that she has to suppress.
No, you can't make somebody do something unnatural. Like that's so not cool. You can't tell somebody they have to take a synthetic hormone to like, no, that's like,
it's insane. It's insane. And, you know,
unethical.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unethical. But, that I've heard when it comes to testing athletes that something like we all have a ratio of testosterone. We're allowed to be 4 times higher than what it is. And when you go past that, so like the average person has it here, but you can still be 4 times greater than that or something. And it's still,
count. So yeah, like
legal.
I forget one of it's like WADA or US, one of the boards, because I'm always keeping up with them, did just release something where they did raise the levels on something. Cause like, you know, as they're coming out, like the SARMs now, they're illegal, you know, every year people, you know, these scientists come up with new things and it takes the governing boards a little bit of time to catch up. But something they did just raise the rates on a little bit. It may have been like the UFC, whoever, you know, WADA does UFC or something. I forget what it was for, but they did increase the levels because they were finding that too many people were coming back and it didn't make sense. You know, like they're like, okay, we have to recalibrate. We have to recalibrate. And then, so they admitted to that, which kind of sucks maybe for anybody who didn't test it out, but I think they have a pretty good idea of what's going on and what's, you know.
I was going to say, because doesn't eating healthy and eating lots of like meat and exercising, well, it's going to raise your testosterone.
It should, in theory. I mean, let's not forget there's also these environmental estrogens and toxins and things in our mattress. And like, so when it comes to fertility, we always look at the woman, but it's more than 50% of infertility comes from men's sperm. And we can increase quality of sperm in about 8 weeks. It takes a lot longer to increase women's eggs, but men reproduce sperm in about 8 weeks. And so we can change environmental factors and diet and increase sperm count in about 8 weeks.
Oh my God.
So there's a lot of things that can be done, but it's like really looking at like, do you have chemicals around you? Do you have mattress? You know, it sounds crazy, but like what's in your water? Are you drinking plastic bottles? Do you have, you know, what is there toxins where you're working? You know, how many synthetic materials are there's just so many things that are like off gassing, like just tons of stuff that can be there. And then of course the, you know, crappy Wendy's, whatever diet, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm amazed because a lot of the athletes, I know you work with a lot of athletes that have their diets dialed in and stuff like that. But, you know, I ran track a long time ago. And when I was at college at the training table, it was crap. And then when every meal we ate, even like when we were on the road at a track meet, was shit food. And I mean,
it is. And the schools that aren't like, you know, the LSU and Alabama, and first of all, we're talking about football. Now let's talk about a sport that's not bringing in that amount of money. I mean, look what just happened with the NCAA, with the women's basketball tournament. You know, I don't know if you're aware of what happened, but like the food quality for the women to the men. And so if you're not bringing in a ton of money, they're not going to give you the best food. So if you take any sports outside of football, they're not getting great food. And then if you take the schools that are like D2, D3, they're not getting, I mean, if you have a strength coach, because they don't have a nutritionist, if you have a strength coach that cares, once in a while, you'll find someone that's going to do the best they can on their small budget. But other than that, it's not a concern. It's not a thing. And so, yeah, tons of athletes aren't. And even in the league, tons of athletes aren't eating great. I happen to have people that care about their food and want to put money into that but not everybody does. It's so mind blowing to me that like your career is based around how you function. And that is based around the food that you put into your body. Literally like 50% of your income is based around the food you put into your body and you still don't care. When is that going to become like, it's like, hello, knock, knock, anyone home? I mean, like, people don't care.
One of my buddies that played for the Steelers was telling me about Jerome Bettis one time. And he said, Jerome Bettis wouldn't even come to the weight room. He's like, they had to pay him. They had to put a bonus in his contract. Like, if you lift this many days a week, we will give you all this money. And he's like, here I am, busting my ass in the gym every day, working out.
Was he like a skills guy or something? Was he a cornerback
he was a tight end? And here's Jerome Bettis, who was like, you know, this great running back.
Running back's what he was. And he was a running back and he didn't want to lift. That's really weird because usually they're brick. You know what I mean?
He was just a natural, he's one of those guys. I grew up around some of these guys, and I'll never forget, who was it? Ricky Jackson or Hugh Green, when I was a kid, said something like, lifting's for white boys.
A lot of the lifting mentality has been changing, and a lot of it comes from the college, because I work with the guys right when they're right out of college, and I know the different college programs that are already going to come in, like if they're still under the same coach, of like have this weird attitude towards lifting. It starts at a college level, and then it goes from there. And then I've seen guys come around. Like I have one cornerback I worked with when I first started working. We hated the weight room. He had all these like, it's going to make me get hurt. Da, da, da. Now, like he'll post these in the weight room. I'm like, I'm so proud of you. It's like, it's a growth thing. They just have to realize. He's like, no, I realize I do need the weight room. Well, you know what you're taught. And like your coach is like, you look up to your coach in college and you just know what they tell you.
I've seen it in every sport. I've seen everybody, and I've seen it with CrossFit, where it's changed athletes in all different kinds of sports, from golf to, I've talked to pro golfers who are like, oh, when I started lifting, oh my God, I started hitting the ball so much farther, and I had control, and I had this, and my breathing got better. And I see it. I surf a lot, and I talk to a lot of pro surfers. And when they start training, they don't want to, they get an injury or something, and then they have to start. And once they start, they're like, oh my God, why haven't I been doing this since day one? This changed everything.
And we're talking about aging and muscle density, bone density, all that. You got to build it when you can. Like this, I strongly believe, unfortunately, that there is going to be an epidemic of women that are going to have a high osteoporosis level, and we are going to see a lot of problems with like osteopenia and like frailness in the next 20 years with these women that are doing these like not eating, significantly under eating, and doing these like, I don't want to trash any type of thing, but like Bar or like Tracy Anderson, or like these, like they're afraid of weights. They want to be long and lean, and like they look like they're starving, and they're afraid to lift weights because they're afraid they're going to look big, and it's going to be like survival of the fittest. Like I'm going to be walking around, doing great, and unfortunately they're going to break a hip, or they're going to. I just think it's going to be a really big problem.
I try to beat that into my wife's head all the time. Like she looks at CrossFitters. She's like, I don't want to look like these women, these professional. And I'm like,
yeah. Do you know how hard it is to look that way? Like every day, I'm like, please, I just want more muscle.
Hey, I want to look like those pro female CrossFitters. Like I can't get that big. I try hard. I can't get like that. I tell her that, but I've slowly gotten her into it. But what about the vitamin D? I mean, is that a reason too for the osteoporosis and the
it's vitamin D, it's calcium is a huge thing, but it all comes down to like not eating enough calories. Is you can't get in your nutrients, right? You need to eat calories to get in your nutrients. So it's calorie restriction. And then it's, lifting helps bone density so much. We know that, right? That pressure that we're putting on the bones when we're lifting, it helps make them stronger. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, a big tie into these like dance around, methods is that there are very low calorie diets that come with them. Yeah. This thought of like, I can't be skinny enough. I can't. And I just did a post on this the other day and got such great feedback. Like if you live in LA or if you live in New York, or like, there's no such thing as being skinny enough. You cannot be skinny enough in your head. And it's like, I didn't learn that until I moved down south. And I was like, wow, I love my body. I was not comfortable in my body until I moved down south. And then like, I lived in Atlanta for a while. Going back to New York, I was like, everyone looks anorexic. Yeah. They are like, everybody looked anorexic to you. Like, why does everyone look anorexic? It's like women just feel like they cannot be skinny enough. And it's like, why is that cool? It's not.
I don't know. I mean, that's a 10-part series we could do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, I think it's a cultural thing that's going to take forever to change. That's a really, really, really tough one that CrossFit's tried to change forever. Strong is the new skinny and all the different things they've tried.
That's been like CrossFit's been the best thing for women, and I think that like, I love when women come to me and are like, I want to learn how to lift, I'm ready to make that change. And I'm like, yes, I love that. I was never really big into personal training. I would take like a couple of select clients, but if a woman called me and was like, I've been doing bar for years, I found you, I really want to learn how to lift, I would put her in my schedule. Because that's why I do it. That's what I live for. I want to teach you how to feel comfortable in a weight room. I want to teach you how to squat. I want you to know that you belong in the same room with the men and feel comfortable. And then you can go off on your own.
I'll tell you what upsets me when I see one of these girls, whether it be a friend or whatever, because I have a few of them that are too skinny and obviously too skinny, and to the point of I worry about them. And they post a picture on Instagram of them showing how skinny they are. And then the comments that say,
you look great.
Amazing.
Yeah.
You look wonderful. And I'm like, I can understand, like, I've had a hard time going to that friend and saying, hey, I'm worried about you. You need to start eating, or you need to start like doing the right things because you're looking too skinny and it's unhealthy. I I haven't gotten to the point where I can do that. I want to be able to be that guy, but I don't want, sometimes I feel out of place. If they were close enough, I could do it.
It's hard. And you get these women, these other women, Gabby and I were just talking about this, where it's like, we know when you lose weight, like, so I did bodybuilding competitions for a few years and everybody was like, oh my God, you look so great. I'm like, well, did I look like shit before? Hello. Like, you wouldn't, telling people they look good when they lost weight is not always a compliment, like, it's such a weird thing to say to somebody, like, oh, did you lose weight? You look great. And it's like,
but when she's obviously anorexic, like a girl be obviously anorexic, and
for people to say that, because the problem is these women want to look that way. They want to look that way. That is an ideal.
I want to write to them and say, why are you trying to kill her? You are making this worse by saying you look great, you look wonderful. I'd love to talk to your partner sometime because I think it's so awesome. Like, I talk about CrossFit. There's so much body dysmorphia and so much exercise addiction all the time. I had Dr. Drew on one time or a couple times where I said, hey, is there too much, exercise? Your people body dysmorphic, people addicted to exercise. And he was like, I am.
Me too. No, I'll tell you right now. And I've had this problem my whole life. Like, I don't know what my body looks like in real time. I can look back on pictures. As I've gotten older, I have learned to love my body and appreciate it more. Like, I can now take a selfie in the mirror and be like, you know what? I look fucking great in that bikini. I look really good. I might, and I can appreciate that. It took me until about 38 years old to be able to feel that way. Even though I looked great looking back, like, I feel like that's something that comes with maturity, and it comes with, but still, like, I don't know in real time what I look like. I've had that my whole life, body dysmorphia in a sense, and it's like, that's also why I'm not a huge proponent of weighing yourself all the time. But me personally, I didn't have a scale for like a year during COVID and stuff. And when I was moving around. I need to weigh myself like once a week just to know where I'm at, because I don't know, it's hard for me. Like, I could gain 10 pounds or lose 10 pounds and I still kind of feel the same. And I can still fit my clothes might get a little tighter, but I just like to once in a while, like, check in. I don't weigh myself every day. Sometimes it's more than once a week, but I just like to check in and be like, okay, I'm still at my 163. Like, I'm still there, because I just don't know what I look like in real time. It's hard. It's hard for a lot of us.
That's hilarious. You are by far the most knowledgeable person I have talked to on this show about nutrition.
Thank you.
And I've talked to a million people. I mean, my friend Dylan that I have on the show is amazing too. I don't want to take anything away from him. He's like a mad scientist. He just sits in his laboratory. He's such a dork. Constantly researching and he does such a great job with his clients. But he is like, I talk to him and he will talk over my head so much, so often. And he gets into like the chemistry and I'm like, are you forgetting who you're talking to? I'm an idiot. Talk to me like I'm an idiot. And
it's hard though. Like, that's one thing that I always have to learn, that like I'm talking to people that don't understand the science. So I have to take the complicated science and make it into terms that people can understand. That's like a skill. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you, like, sometimes I wrote an email to one of my NFL players the other day trying to explain what was going on. I had to edit it down like 40 times because my brain is like, oh, well, you have this, and that. And I'm like, no, this is the food you can eat, and this is why. And so it's hard. That's why there's a separation, I always say, between the lab and the field. We have these scientists that are doing all the research, but then we have people like me who are working with people out in the field. And it's like, that's not going to work. I know they need to have protein and beta alanine at 2.3 grams every 4.6 hours, but like, that's not going to happen. So guess what? They may have to go 6 hours, or they may have to eat, certain things just aren't going to happen. You see these things on Instagram where it's like, this is the difference between a nutritionist who knows their stuff and someone who doesn't. When someone's just repeating what they hear out there and they don't understand it, like, there's a difference between being able to like explain it and modify it and apply it than someone who just like, read one of the studies that came out in like the whatever journal, that's kind of floating around the industry, if that makes sense.
I was just going to close this up, but you start talking about beta alanine, and I've had some interesting experiences with it.
That you took too much?
I don't know what the level. I am a no caffeine, like, I can't do caffeine. I get jitters too badly.
So you have the genetic, right? Because it's just genetic, so you can't metabolize it, right?
Right. Yeah. So then beta alanine, I have an energy drink that has it in it, and I don't do pre-workouts. And I was like, let's try this. Let's get into this pre-workout, because I heard Matt Fraser talking about, he takes it and he feels like he's got a third lung. He's like, it kicks in. And then the drink that I do also has, what is it that comes from beetroot? And,
nitrate has a nitrates in it. Yeah.
And I was like, all right, let's go. And I do get this.
Tingly.
I get tingly. I get like this energy. I mean, I do perform better. There's no doubt about it. But for the rest of the day, I feel like I'm on Coke.
So there's something else in there, because beta alanine is not a caffeine product. It is a product that buffers. It buffers the hydrogen ion. So when you get that burning feeling, that lactate buildup, not lactic acid, but lactate buildup, it's supposed to it does buffer that hydrogen so that you get a little bit more out of it. And we know that this happens at about 1 minute. So it's not like 8 reps. Well, if it takes you a minute to do 8 reps, but it's more like if you did 20 reps in a minute. So in a case of a CrossFitter, I could see that happening. If you say you're doing, kipping pull-ups or something like that, or barbell cycling. But for most people, it's interesting because like we see it work really well for bikers. But it happens in about a minute is when it starts to kick in, and it's not a long thing. And what the results you get out of it are small, but if you're a competitive athlete, that extra rep or that extra set or that extra second is a big difference, right? So it can help in those situations, but it's not something that's going to give you energy in that sense. It prevents you from hitting your wall, but it doesn't necessarily give you energy. So I'm wondering what else is in that product besides beets.
It is caffeinated, and so it could have been the caffeine. It just stays with me for so long.
You're not a good metabolist, so you don't detox. That means also that probably means when it comes to medication that you have problem detoxing your medications too. And that's a whole nother, that's glucuronidation. And we know one of the tests on seeing how we detox chemicals and medication is with caffeine. So that you have a genetic SNP probably that doesn't allow you to metabolize caffeine, which also probably affects other detox pathways in your body. So that's something.
Good thing I don't take any medications ever. The only thing I take is I'll take some curcumin, but which is one of the most amazing products. My favorite. I love curcumin. I feel like everyone should take it. It's an amazing antioxidant. It's amazing. Has so many great properties, anti-inflammatory. It's like the miracle drug for me. It really is. The two things that I just swear by right now are allulose and curcumin. I'm like, if you crave sugar like I do, this is like your replacement. And then the curcumin, anytime, headache, little ache, pain here, I'm like, oh my God, I
have a great blog post where we talk about these things. And one of the things that's really interesting about curcumin versus fish oils is like fish oils works on the COX-2 pathway, which is the inflammatory pathway that ibuprofen works on for pain, but it doesn't work immediately. Where we saw studies with curcumin, actually immediately, high doses, you can see pain reduction. It can be a substitution. So it gives you that, it's one of the supplements that actually gives you that immediate relief versus most supplements. It's like a long-term thing. You see a reduction on the inflammatory pathway months into taking it, or 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. But with the curcumin, it is something that can be at high doses.
And the only downside of the curcumin is the blood thinning. I mean, which can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing for some people.
Yeah, or the lack of bioavailability, right? That's one of those products where you do have to spend a good amount of money to get a good product, because naturally, like turmeric, which is the root, is like, it's not bioavailable. Most anti-inflammatory supplements or fat soluble vitamins are very hard for us to absorb. So it has to be isolated into 95% curcuminoids, and then it has to have like the black pepper, and it should be suspended with a fat or taken with a fat, eaten with a fat to help absorption. So it's worth spending the money on a good product when it comes to that.
I always, if I don't know what company to go to and I don't want to do the research, hey, squirrel, if I don't like the, hey, puppy, come here. If I'm not, I just go to Thorne. Thorne is my
Thorne's good. Yeah. Thorne's good. And they have an NSF sport line. They're affordable. I like Thorne. I wish Thorne was on full script, which is like what I use for my other supplements. And it kind of, unfortunately, I can't send people to 2 different pathways. Like I can't be like, buy this and buy that. Like I wish they were still on full script, but they're not. And I get it. They're trying to do their own kind of full script thing, and they have a ton of great products. I do like Thorne. I think it's one of the most affordable products out there. And you can go to the website and they explain it well, and they have a lot of good things going on there.
Yeah. Well, thank you. So I have 7 million questions I could ask. I've got to have you on the show again. You have honestly been one of my favorites. I can say that honestly, because you know what you're talking about, and you don't, if you, like you said to me, I don't know if I'm going to do my research. And we could have gotten more into that, but there were so many other things I wanted to ask you. Where can people find you? Because I can't recommend you enough to me.
My biggest platform, I guess, is like Instagram, and it's Athletes Nutrition, and it's spelled ATHLEATS, like eats. So it's a play on words. If you're watching the YouTube, you can see it. So it's Athletes Nutrition. That's my Instagram. I post a ton of educational stuff on there. I try to really keep it, fresh and post things on my stories. People comment, they say that they love watching my stories, that I'm hysterical. I keep shit real. It's a lot of nutrition, but you get to delve into my life a little bit too. And so I always recommend Instagram. And then, my website, athletesnutrition.com. And those are probably the two best places. I had to restart Twitter, so I have We Are Athletes. But I would say
are you going to stay in Miami, or is this just temporary during the COVID
I
crisis?
just moved into this beautiful, amazing apartment. So I'll be here. I've given up. I've waved my white flag on New York City for now. I love New York. It's my home.
Did you grow up there?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in New Jersey, but I moved to New York, 16 years. I've been in Manhattan.
Oh yeah. I talked to you about New Jersey the other day when we were talking.
Yeah. So I went to after college, and then I moved up to New York. So it's my home. I miss my friends. It's easier because some people from New York have come down to Miami now. So it does make it easier. I do have friends here. But I always go where the business is too. So, but Miami's great. It's beautiful right now. My apartment's great. I'm happy. So I'm here for a while. That's for sure. At least a year.
I can't recommend you enough to anybody for your services, and just to get this time to talk to you was great. So thank you very, very much. And I'm going to bug you again to be on the show.
Okay. Thanks for having me on.
All right, here, let me just, you guys know what to do. Rate, review, and comment. Thanks for listening.